for you. We've got Dave from All Terrain Nation with us this evening because this is going to be a huge night. We're talking about huge news, mostly for Ford until the end of the show. So we're going to start off with talking about the Ford Ranger. Huge news there. We'll talk about the new Ford Explorer and how we've got new prices. And we'll talk about the best model, sort of like a brief price overview, build and price. We'll talk about the Ford Maverick models, hopefully coming soon, what we can expect in regards to the Ford Maverick. Get Dave's take on the Ford Maverick as well, of course. We'll talk about Bronco frame damage because Dave and I are both Bronco guys, as many people are here in the community. And then we'll talk about, if we've got time, whether truck sales really are crashing, because that seems to be like one of the biggest topics in the car community these days. Everyone's doing the skies falling videos on YouTube, and I love having Dave on the show, and I love watching his show. So please, everyone, subscribe to Dave at All Terrain Nation because he's a good guy that gives it to us straight. He doesn't just say whatever will pay his channel the most to say. He goes with
I wish I could.
reality.
I wish I could make some money that way, John.
I don't think your heart or your mind would allow it. You're a good guy and you say the real deal.
Well, I appreciate that, John. I appreciate a chance to speak to your audience a little bit tonight. We've just dropped a video on that new Explorer, so I'm interested to see what they think of that thing. Mild refresh, I'm pretty excited that. But Ranger Raptor, I'm like many people waiting on that thing. You remember what it was like for Bronco,
Oh yeah.
like in the Rangers, not to that extent, but I'm pumped for the Ranger Raptor, so I'm excited to talk there as well.
Yeah, same here. Looking forward to a chat with that, especially with someone as I feel like you're the second person I've ever had on the channel. And the reason for that, and you're the first journalist I've ever had on the channel because you're one of the few journalists that I respect and go to for information that I know isn't going to be you're not just following, you're not just riding the waves of the ocean. New models
Yeah,
normally come out and every single journalist is basically almost saying, this is the best model. They've got titles like, is this the best model? And because it's new and people are excited about it, they go far too extreme on how amazing it is. But then when it's time, 6 months, 1 year later, they also follow that wave and crash into the shoreline saying, this model is bad. It's look at all these problems, and then they go excessively negative on a vehicle once the
yeah.
initial excitement is done. And I've never seen you do that. You've always been the real deal.
Well, I think a lot of times some of the more enthusiast channels, they want to get the eye of the manufacturer a little bit, so they're always ultra positive, hoping that they might get. Ford has what they call Friends of Ford, where people get to experience kind of what journalists get to do. They get to go out and be a part of the vehicle launches. And I think a lot of times people are doing that, and I've seen, especially with Bronco, I've seen a lot of that. And then when they didn't get any attention, suddenly they go real negative because me and you've privately talked about this. Negativity sells, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of channels out there that are just, oh, it's over. And I know I see you combat that a lot. The way you describe it, and of course you work in the industry as well, so you have a good idea of what's going on there. But I just try to shoot it as straight as possible, and I think it's where a big chunk of my audience kind of liked what I was doing initially, because with Bronco I had connections to the Michigan assembly plant, and I was able to find out some stuff. I had people with Wabastos with the hardtop issues contacting me, like trying to share some stuff. And I just tried to bring it. Hey, they're messing this up. They're kind of screwing this up, and I try to just be as honest as I can without just being a jerk about it too. You don't want to. I always say constructive criticism on my channel, because Ford can't change anything, or any of these manufacturers can't change anything if all they read in the social media, the descriptions is, hey, this sucks, or this is awful. This is like, I can't take that back to a manufacturer and go, this is what the audience says. But if you say, here's why that I'm not happy about this, and that's what I try to do a lot of times, is just be like, here's why I love this product, or here's why I'm not. And you have the new Explorer up there in the background, and right now, I'm gonna be really positive about that vehicle because, for one, I think it's a great vehicle, and two, I haven't been able to drive it yet. Or, I think next week I'll be at the Chicago Auto Show, and I know they're gonna have one there. So I'll be able to get my hands on it, but till I get my hands on it, my early videos are gonna be pretty positive, you know?
Yeah, and I like that. There's one huge YouTuber that was actually very negative about the Bronco, saying, it was bad. But that YouTuber, one of the biggest, was upset that he didn't get to drive it. That's
Mhm.
at the phase when Ford either didn't have an engine in the Bronco that they're letting journalists go around, or the radio was just it was all for looks. The
Yeah,
radio didn't function. A lot of these vehicles weren't they're either not drivable or not very drivable because Ford was just in a hurry to at least let journalists comment about it. Well, you can't say something's going to be good or bad before you've even tested it. Now, you can always have
right,
speculation if you've tested. You and I have been around the auto industry. We've driven a lot of vehicles, so you can make presumptions because you've already driven extensively the
right.
same engine, the same transmission setup. So neither of us, I think, are negative Nancy's. I'm Johnny from Johnny's Car Care and Reviews, and you've got Dave there from All Terrain Nation. So please subscribe to Dave's channel. It's a fantastic channel. Got a lot of respect for the man, and I thank you very much for coming to the show. So we're going to be talking tonight. If we've got time, we are going to be talking about whether those truck sales are crashing. And I think Ford truck sales prove we want affordable options and we need affordable options. So we're going to be looking at pricing, of course, for the new Ford Explorer coming up. And really, how new is it? Well, we'll cover all the newness and the not so newness. And that can be actually a good thing. Sometimes it's great. We think of Toyota, they'll sometimes keep an engine for almost 25 years, but it's very reliable. They've had time to work on it. So there can be some very good things to not going full out, completely new. But let's start right up this evening. We're going to be talking about the Ford Ranger because, well, Dave and I are excited and in a hurry to talk about the Ford Ranger because we're both waiting on a Ford Ranger. I've actually I had a Porsche 911 GTS on order, and I've canceled that because my Ford Lightning has depreciated incredibly. So it's a negative equity that I can slam onto a Ranger Raptor that I'd ordered
Yeah.
about last June, but my dealer is not getting any allocations. So that'll be a bit of the talk in regards to how to actually get a Ford Ranger. When can we expect to get one? So let's just jump right in. Let's talk about the 2024 Ford Ranger. Dave, actually, I highly recommend you check out his channel because he covered this last week, about 6, 7 days ago. He covered how there's actually Rangers built, but sitting around at lots. And I think photos like that can frustrate some, but I think you did a great job of explaining what's behind it. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so if you read any of the forums or any social media on any of this stuff, people, they job one, I think, was January 4th. And what job one, if you're new to that, means production officially starts for that vehicle and they'll go into, full production. Now that doesn't mean they just start ramping up in 1,000 a day. They're slowly getting volume up and once they build them, they put them to the lots. And a lot of people, especially normal Rangers, there's not the enthusiast crowd that there is for Ranger Raptor. So people for Ranger Raptors are just excited. They get their build date and a lot of early January build dates, and people go, "Oh, in 2 weeks I get my vehicles." And the sad truth of that is no, you will not get your vehicle. And Ford they've had a quality issue now. And when I say quality, I don't mean that the cars are just junk. They've had some in manufacturing itself issues where they may build 10 in a row and then somehow something gets scratched on one of the cars through production and they're just tired of having to deal with this kind of stuff. So what they're doing is they are not releasing any vehicles till they know the plant is running optimally and that they're not having issues. Now, I worked in manufacturing, John. I worked for Nissan, so I understand what goes into building cars and how they do trial vehicles. And then we had that pesky UAW strike last year, which kind of good or bad, whatever anybody's in on that situation. I'm glad that the workers got paid. Uh, at the end, I'm glad everybody seems to be as happy as they can be with that. But it put a crimp in the Ranger, and now that we're starting to see Rangers being built, everybody's so overly excited about. Oh man, the Amazon culture is what I call it. Oh, they build it. You get that little bar. Ford makes that beautiful little bar that shows progress of where it's at, and people think. oh, it's going to be on my doorstep in 2 weeks. And that's just sadly, that's not how the case works. And Ford right now, with them having quality issues. And when I say that, once again, I've seen a lot of comments in my videos where people are like, quality issues, you mean they're just, the trucks, they're having to repair them? No, no. What that means is they want quality of the plant. They want everything operating optimally at that plant. And what'll happen is they'll give the okay to buy or okay to sell. And of course, John, I know you know what that means, but your audience may not. What that means is Ford at that point says, okay, dealers are now okay. We are going to invoice you and we're going to start shipping vehicles out where you can actually buy these. That okay to buy does not mean for the customer. It means, I guess, the customer that is the dealership.
Yes.
And so what Ford is doing, they're building these and they're setting on their lots, and you'll see them be moved around all the time. A lot of times, once you get your vehicle's built, you can have your dealer can track it. And I've had dealers do that where they show it moving. My Mustang per se, I saw that Mustang was moved probably 7 times, and each time I got excited because I love cars and trucks just as much as anybody else. So when I know my salesperson was really nice about going, "Hey, they moved your vehicle today," and I think a part of it, she was to mess with me a little bit, knowing I'm a passionate about vehicles, but you might see your vehicle get 30 to 40 miles on it, and you're like, well, that's not a new vehicle anymore. Don't fret. That's just because they move them around a lot. Or when in manufacturing, when they're building these things, sometimes they might get feedback of we're hearing a rattle, something when they're pulling them out of the plant, and they'll take them on a test track and they'll run a mile or two that way, listening. There's bumps on that test track. They're listening for anything they want to build you the best vehicle possible. So
That's
at the
right.
end of
We
go
think
ahead,
back
John.
to the Ford Bronco, and the Ford Bronco, we had some show up at the dealership that already had 55 miles on
Hmm.
them. And there's a
Hmm.
sticker saying this was tested for 50 miles and it was, some were picked out at random. And that was part of the process. And like you say, if they do notice when they're moving them around a certain noise or any potential problem, then they'll also throw it like, you know what, this one needs to go do the 50-mile test.
Yeah.
So it's not at that point picked at random. But what's interesting I find about this is Jim Farley did promise that quality would be priority number one. And
Hmm.
the overall result of this is we're going to get Ford Rangers with less recalls once they show up to the dealership and once they're actually in your yard. So, it's pretty frustrating. We've heard this we've heard and seen this with the Bronco. Some Broncos would show up at the dealership and then we can't deliver them. They
Hmm.
got blocked. We've seen it for various Lincolns, and that's Ford blocking the vehicle, saying, you know what, the dealership, you cannot sell this. We saw, last summer, I saw it with some Super Duties, and we couldn't deliver them sometimes for
Didn't
up to
Lightning
two
have an
months.
issue like that as well? Something about on the light bar of Lightning, they were having
Yeah.
issues and
And that's an amazing point. We think about when Ford was holding back some Lightnings at the factory, one actually caught fire. And the reason
mhm.
Ford was holding back a big bunch of Lightnings for about 2 weeks, we were sitting back looking into the system within Ford saying, what is going on? We've got some Lightnings not moving. Why can't we have them? And like you said, you made an excellent point. Ford is making sure that things are, A-okay in the case of the Lightning. They clearly maybe had a suspicion, kept a block of them. One caught fire. They stopped production, what was it, for 2.5 weeks,
Mhm.
and found the problem, corrected the problem. Every one of those held back lightnings was corrected. So then the production chain didn't continue to produce the error that they had found. And that's often how Toyota, whenever they bring something online at the factory, they start building them at a very slow pace because they want to perfect the line really before just sending them out. And like we saw, in 2022, Ford ends up with the most recalls. And actually this year, they 2023, the promise was made there'd be less recalls, or at least that would be priority number one. And Ford is no longer number one when it comes to people affected by recalls. Surprisingly,
Right.
it was actually Honda that had the not the most recalls, but the most amount of people affected by recalls in 2023.
Well, they gotta quit partnering with GM is Honda's problem.
You get you.
No, but for Ranger, I think part of Ranger's issues were that I was at the press of the launch of this vehicle back in me and Kelly were talking about it today. It was the 1st of May last year is when they did the press, release of this stuff, and I think then they did the order banks opened up, and I think had normally the way this would have worked in 6 months, they would have had vehicles to your doorstep. I
Yeah.
think that's what really is getting people excited by this now is, "Hey, where's my vehicle?" You know, it feels a lot like Bronco, and of course, you know, Bronco, we had that pesky pandemic kinda screwing everything up. But I do know from my inside sources there within, Michigan Assembly Plant, you know, they've had a few issues they've had to work through. There was a few lineup things weren't lining up as they wanted. And, you know, I think, you know, I'll say this here, I haven't said this on my channel yet, but I think you're gonna start seeing some of those Rangers being shipped without they're gonna be missing some parts. And I
Mm.
think you're gonna start seeing credits to some things that they just, I don't know if why. I don't know if it's the strike that's kind of your 3rd tier manufacturers that make small parts for this thing, if they couldn't keep up to production or what is going on. But, yeah, there's been a few things with Ranger that's kind of, held it up. But I think, like you said, Ford's number 1 goal is to get you they want a happy customer, and I know sometimes when we're all waiting, we don't feel like that happy customer, but in the end, it's about they want you know, they want you coming back. They want you buying a new vehicle every 3 to 5 years, and so therefore, they can't have these pesky recalls and, upset customers.
That's a really good point. And at the end of the day, if your vehicle does have recalls on them, often most of Ford's recalls are for relatively small issues. So I
Mhm.
personally wait until I'm due for an oil change, not the case for the Lightning, but I'll often get, if I've got 2 or 3 recalls to do, I'll just let it sit for 3, 4 months until I've got my oil change scheduled. Put it in for the oil change instead of being in and out in roughly 1 to 2 hours. The vehicle might be there for the day. All the recalls get done, and that way I don't get inconvenienced. And for owners, every Ford dealership should have a taxi service. So when you drop your vehicle off, they should be able to drive you to work and pick you up at the end of the day. So there's ways around that. Now, just to talk quickly about a little bit about price for any of you that are thinking about getting the Ranger, it actually comes equipped quite well, surprisingly well. And the new Explorer, we'll get to that this evening. The new Explorer, the standard equipment on it is incredible. Ford put a lot into the package that normally they would sort of most manufacturers would bleed the customer for the bigger touch screens and added safety technology. So I think Ford's listening. There's been a lot of talk about how people want more, we don't want to get pulled into higher trim levels just to get bigger screens. But on the Ranger, you got the XL starting at 36,315 if you take it as a 4x4. And you know what? When it comes to trucks, I like my trucks 4x4. Dave, how do you feel about the 2x4, 4x4 battle?
Well, I always say that generally I want the four-wheel drive system because I here in Tennessee, if you don't know, if most of your viewers don't know, I'm in Middle Tennessee, and we do get snow and a lot of ice. So I always want the most capable vehicle, and for whatever reason, I need to get a family member to a hospital, or just I need to get away from my house for some reason. I always want the most capable vehicle possible. So I generally go with an all-wheel drive slash four-wheel drive system.
Yeah, and I'm up here in Canada, tons of snow, and when it comes down to it, even if I was living in Florida, hopefully I can make that dream happen once Layla's off to and done university. But until then, I once I get there, I'll still want a 4x4 because it's a truck. I'll
Mhm.
wanna go take it mudding. I wanna do truck things with it. So you've got the XL starting at 32,670. And if you do wanna go 4x4, well, you're adding roughly $4,000. And I think it's worth it because you'll get it back when it comes to resale. Now, if you keep your vehicles for 20 years, or really anything over 9 or 10 years, but I've taken in 15-year-old Ford Rangers and still got much better prices for that Ranger when it's 4x4. You've got the XLT, and that's sort of me personally, I would get a 4x4 XLT. They now come standard as sport models. You can see it right there in the picture. That's how you're going to get your Ranger. You're going to get the darker mags. Ford previously, they didn't make very many 2023 Rangers. You actually had to pay to remove the chrome.
Yeah,
Now you're
wow.
getting the standard, which I think is a good move. How do you feel about that?
I was pretty excited, so I got to like I said, I got to see these at launch, and they had the XL, XLT, and a Lariat, and when I got to see it, and of course, the Raptor as well. And I think the XLT is probably the best value. The only bummer about it is you've got a key instead of remote start. You don't have the complete, fob where you just walk in your vehicle, push start and go. You're still stuck with a key, which is I know that sounds like first world problems really, but I'm so used to having a fob now in every car I have. It's kind of
Yeah.
awkward to have a key again. But the cloth seats in the thing are super nice. The interior of the vehicle is just as nice as the Lariat. I actually prefer me and Kelly talked about it when we were looking at these vehicles. We actually preferred the cloth over the kind of vinyl leather seats that the Lariat was gonna get. And I think, once you add what's their offer? The FX4 package, I think
Yep.
that's gonna be nice. And hopefully, John, by next year, hopefully I have a feeling we're gonna see it late summer, is I hope they do a trimmer with that. They did it previously, and I have a feeling they're gonna wanna fill in the spot between XLT and Raptor, and I think that's probably gonna be the best value when that happens.
I've got a feeling that that's how we're actually gonna finally get that six-cylinder 2.7-liter twin turbo engine, which is fantastic. We've got it in our Broncos, and
Mhm,
I'm thrilled with that engine. I've actually had people I know who've drag raced the high output limited F-150 versus an XL STX F-150 with the 2.7-liter, and
mhm.
they're neck and neck. And at the very end, the high output 3.5-liter EcoBoost just barely beats the 2.7-liter, and that's stock 2.7-liter twin turbo V6. So that's an incredible engine, and I think it's smart on Ford's part to not allow us to order that right away. In regards to, Ford's a company that needs to stay in business if we're going to continue getting vehicles that we like quite a bit.
Right.
It would take away, I think, a bit from the Raptor, because the Raptor right now, when you don't, it's the only way to get a six-cylinder, and the 3-liter is fantastic. I've driven it in the Lincoln Aviator. I've driven it with the Ford Explorer ST, and it's a bomb. It is a
Mhm.
blast of an engine, tons of pedal to the metal, fun, and surprisingly, it doesn't punish you very much when it comes to miles per gallon. You can, with the variable twin cam technology, it can be both an engine that's giving you high performance or fuel economy. So it's
I
it's it's a good setup.
I have to commend it to Ford too. When every other manufacturer is losing engine options, Ford's still
Yeah,
allowing us to have some sort of an option. I think, initially when the last generation Ranger only came with the 2.3, everybody in the industry knew that truck was just a holdover. That was to get us. Ford was bringing that truck was going to go launched in Australia first because that's kind of the home of Ranger now. That's it used to be an American truck. It's really an Australian truck that sort of the global market's kind of getting. But when they launched that 2.3, I was a little bummed, but after spending some time with that engine, it's a great engine. But like you said, the 2.7 is gonna be I think for the Ranger, that's gonna be like having a big V8 in that size of a
yeah,
vehicle. I think you're gonna get a lot of power. The torque numbers are really good. I was a little disappointed that they didn't keep the horsepower numbers the same as Bronco. I think they'll offer a tune to kind of satisfy that part of the market. But 300 what is it, 315, I think the 2.7 is gonna make in that little
mhm,
truck. That's a lot of I remember I'm old enough, and I always date myself with this. My dad's '76 or '77 Silverado did make 200 horsepower, and that was into the big V8. And so I'm old enough to remember the big engines not even getting close to this. The idea that these little 4 cylinders, these little the 2.7 is really a small 6-cylinder in reality. Um, it's not like the old school Chevy Vortec 4.3s, it's a smaller bore on this thing, but I'm excited for that 2.7. I think you'll start seeing, order banks open up for that probably late spring, early summer. I think it's just the idea was to have it ready for March, and just with the UAW strike and everything, it's just pushed everything back a little bit, but if that's the engine your people want, I would wait for it because I think that's gonna be a heck of a truck.
and now I'm wondering, at the end, is it going to turn the XLT into an incredible bargain and be an engine option at,
Mhm.
$2,000-3,000, just like the F-150 with all its choices of engine options? Or are they going to save it for the Tremor? And that the Tremor, like you said, would be a fantastic in between the Raptor and the Lariat, and well, XLT or Lariat, because if you look at the F-150, you've got the 401 Tremor F-150, which is
Mhm.
essentially a Sport 302 XLT bumped up, or modified to Tremor. But then you also have the 402, which is a Lariat F-150, a fully equipped Lariat turned or converted, modified into a Tremor. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. And I can't get an answer. My dealership, we can't get an answer from Ford. We just don't know.
Well, I seen the 2.7 when I did the press reveal. They did have a 2.7 in a Lariat, so I know
Okay.
that it yes. So that was
Fantastic.
I've got a video up of that, and we do a walk around with the 2.7, open the hood and stuff, and, it's a spaghetti looking motor with all the tubing going everywhere, but, I think you're right, though. I think, you add an XLT with the 2.7, I think that's a bargain, and I hate to say, because the prices what is an XLT right now, John? I mean, you had them up there a minute ago.
Yeah,
What
so the XLT, we've got it right here. If you take it 4x2, of course, rear wheel drive, you got 36,110. You pay roughly almost not quite $4,000 more, 39,595. Folks, don't forget, manufacturers on their initial pricing, it's to get you to click, it's to, get your foot in the door. They're
Mhm.
not giving us that roughly $2,000 of, transport fees.
Right, right,
Hilarious. Yeah.
but John, I wanted to finish on that I think that truck is gonna be an amazing home run, but I hate to say that we get near $40,000 anymore, that's a affordable truck, but that is what
Yeah.
it is, and I know you have some pricing there, but yeah, it's anybody in the comments, yes, I understand trucks are getting expensive, and don't blame just one manufacturer, blame them all, because when one does something, they're like, "Why not?"
And that was a big takeaway for me that writing up this show this evening. It was one of the points I wanted to make. And that's, often people will shop, most people shop one brand. Some people will shop two brands, and you have the very, very rare shopper. It's less than 5% of the shoppers out there. They're going to shop across, if they're looking at a truck, they're going to look at every single truck manufacturer and shop them all, which means the
Mhm.
huge majority of people are only, let's say, looking at GM or only looking at Dodge. They're not going to go anywhere else. And they're going to say, what the heck? Dodge prices have increased tremendously, which didn't work out for Dodge. The Ram 1500 lost roughly 10%. They made about roughly 10% less sales in 2023 on the Ram 1500 than in 2022 when their yards had no Rams. The Rams that were
Yeah.
coming in for pretty much all of 2022 were customer orders. So they did have a bit of a devastating year. We'll get to that, yeah, at the very end of the show. But yeah, these prices have gone up, and they've gone up everywhere. And of course, something that doesn't help this are those pesky, cafe regulations that these manufacturers, if they're not making wildly insane mile per gallon fleet averages, they have to either pay fines to the
Yeah.
government or buy credits from Tesla. So
Yeah.
essentially give money to the competitor that could run you out of business.
Isn't that
So
ironic that
wild.
Ford and GM are buying Tesla credits, and of course Ford's buying Rivian credits and all this, these fake tax credits, and I don't wanna get political on this, but that to keep their fleet going, but the irony now is where Toyota came out and said, "Hey, we're not going fully EV. We don't believe in that. We wanna do this." And usually when Ford pivots to something, everybody else kind of like, "Uh-oh, we better pivot with Ford on this." But I thought it was funny when Ford came out a month and a half or when Toyota came out a month and a half ago and said, "You know what? We're still working heavily with hydrogen." And Toyota's been working on that for past 20 years really to perfect that. And when they were like, "You know what? We think EV or hybrid is the way to go." And suddenly Ford that's when Ford, the unfortunately, the Lightning's not selling as well. I know they're bragging that the sales were, "Oh, record sales." Well, if you start at 0, anything's a record sale past 0. So
That's
and that's
right.
not to insult, the hard workers that are building the Lightnings, but if you kinda
It's
PR
market.
move there to say, "Hey, look, well, record year." Well, yeah, if you couldn't get them in '22, probably '23 was gonna be a record year, but early adopters kicked in, which was, we need early adopters to push the tech, but then when people realized, "I can't do anything or can't do much with the Lightning," and I know you've had, a heck of a time with yours with some issues, and then Toyota's like, "Hey, EV or hybrid's the way to go. You know, the new Tacoma's gonna be that way. We do know the Ranger they're gonna do a power boost version of this, or I think that's what they're gonna call it, the power boost name, because they really pushed suddenly when the 24 F-150 come out, they really pushed power boost again. And if you remember when what power boost came out in 21, it was all the rage. They wanted to talk about all the capabilities of
Yeah.
that. Then they sort of forgot about it when Lightning was in the news. And now they're pivoting away from just fully EV. And I think next year, probably late the end of the year, we hear about this where you hear about a power boost Ranger. I think that's going to be a lot of fun, but also think it's going to be about a $55,000 mid-sized truck. So hopefully, all these manufacturers have learned, hey, you can't force your adopters to go fully one way or the other. Give them years to adopt. I think hybrid for me is the most exciting way to do that.
Absolutely. And we'll get to the Ranger. I want to get to the Ranger plug-in in just a moment because there's some news from Europe about that, and it is exciting news because it will be the version with the most amount of torque, more torque than the Raptor. Just to finish up a bit of pricing for those that haven't ordered yet, we do have that Lariat at 43,630. 47,115 if you take it 4x4, which would be my recommendation. You know, even if you live in a warm climate, you own a boat, you're going down a boat ramp, let's say you're only rear wheel drive, you've got weight on that rear hitch. Sometimes you just don't have enough traction because of, gravel at the boat ramp, that you're in an embarrassing situation. You're asking someone to pull you and your boat off the boat ramp, so not always ideal. Then we've got the the Ford Ranger Raptor 3-liter V6, incredibly powerful and even a much heavier vehicle, the Lincoln Aviator. The
Mhm.
Ford Explorer ST, I've driven them. Great engine, great transmission, tons of fun, and you're starting at 55,470. Of course, about an extra $2,000 for what every manufacturer is calling that essentially the transport and handling fee.
Yeah, here I think it's what 15 in the United States. I think $1,500, something like that, which is it keeps going up $100 every year, which is
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah, it hurts. It hurts. At least it's an average. Imagine that it hurts people living right by Michigan. So these
Yeah,
things are built, but then for people that live far away, imagine if you're paying 5,000 in transport and handling.
yeah.
So
Well,
we've got
I
the
think it's fair, definitely.
yeah, I'm happy that it works out as an average. Of course, I don't live right beside Michigan, and people who live in Michigan and even build them and then pay for this transport fee, they're probably less happy and feeling like it's less fair than you and I that kind of live a ways off.
Yeah, how would you like John, how would you I don't know if you ever remember this when the Bronco was being starting to be delivered, the people were fussing about that $1,500. I think it was 14 at the time. They were fussing that some of these deliveries were right there's a Ford dealership right across from the plant, Michigan Assembly Plant, and they're like, "Why am I paying these fees and all this?" And you're like, "It has to average out, man, trust me." Yeah, they probably made good money on your delivery, but guess what? Goes out west, they're not making that money.
Alaska, what would Alaska be paying? Nine,
Right.
10, $12,000 in transport? Like
Right.
they wouldn't be buying, they wouldn't be buying new vehicles for kill the market. But great news for the Ranger in Europe. They did announce the from what I can tell here over on Motor Trend, we've got the 2.3-liter four-cylinder, with the 10-speed modular hybrid transmission. We're looking at 18 kilowatts. They're hoping, we're all waiting to find out if this will ever come to the Bronco. Uh, as far as I know, I'm still waiting for a date for when Europe is going to get this. But a Ranger 2.3-liter, you look at this vehicle weighing what, roughly 4,500 pounds. Already, it's going to be your Ranger Raptor. I look forward to your videos because what is that? In the Aviator, it's 400 horsepower, 415 pound-feet
406,
of torque.
I think 405, 406 in the little truck.
Incredible sound.
Yes, sound great.
So in a truck that weighs a good amount less than a Lincoln Aviator, this thing is going to fly. So Ford did introduce a Ranger plug-in hybrid already for the global market, just not Canada and the US, unfortunately. But we're going to get it eventually. They need to bring down, because of those CAFE rules and that form of taxation, we can, invented taxation manufacturers need to sell things that take, that get over 50 miles per gallon. With Lightning sales not going to the level that they had projected, they're going to need to come out in a hurry with vehicles like the Ranger Raptor, sorry, the plug-in Ranger and the plug-in Bronco, based off that 2.3 liter. And usually for economy of scale, for cost effectiveness, usually it's all about volume. I'd be very surprised to see a different variation in the Bronco. I highly suspect that, since it's a 2.3 liter plug-in Ranger, that's what we would get in the Bronco. Do you think there'd be good chances that Ford would actually put it to the 2.7, or do you think they'll?
I think they'll stick with the smaller displacement engine because you want for fuel economy. You want to give that part of it is the best, the best chance at good fuel economy. But John, I don't look for the plug-in hybrid to come to the United States. I look for it just to be more of a dedicated hybrid. I know I've in trucks especially, I've never seen the excitement for plug-in hybrids because I've done time with the 4xe stuff from Jeep,
Yeah,
and it's always disappointing to me. I know the little 2-liter, 4-cylinder they put in that is a nice little high output 4-cylinder, but if you've never driven that kinda tech, it's the braking puts you off a little bit, that regenerative braking, and some of that just it doesn't make it fun. And for a pickup truck especially, I personally, and this is just my opinion, I don't the hybrid is the way to go. And plug-in, yeah, you're gonna get that pure 40, 50 miles of range, but at the end of the day, that's not much range, and trucks are made to work.
yeah,
And
and it's
I
actually
don't
worse. It's 28. They're
okay.
talking about 28 miles of all electric
And that's
range.
just
So
a
really,
political thing. That to
yeah,
make
it
that
is.
thing a plug-in, that's
Yeah,
and once again, I'm not choosing a side on that, but that is to satisfy a government is basically what
yeah,
that is to do. And
absolutely.
you're not giving the customer a great option. So I think if they were to do more of a hybrid here in the United States, and if you when you get your first Rangers, John, you're gonna see under the rear seats, there's a battery. They're waiting to put a battery under there. It's cased. You can see the holes for the wiring to make it adapt. It's
Wow.
perfect spot for it, and that's why with Ranger, people were complaining, "Well, we didn't get any seating. There's no storage under the seating." It's like, because, you know, this isn't Toyota, where Toyota sells over 200,000 trucks a year, so they can take chances and do little tweaks to, "Oh, we'll do our hybrid version. We can do a different body for that, specifically for that." Ford, GM, the big 3, right now, they don't sell enough mid-sized trucks to take some chances. And I know people were disappointed. Oh, we're not getting a manual transmission. We're like I said earlier, I commend Ford for giving us motor options, and they didn't have to do that because they'd already trained the audience. The 2.3 was perfect in that truck. But with a hybrid, I think specifically you do the 2.3, you make it a power boost where you can use it in the back for work.
Yep.
The carpenter can use it, plug in that way. And I think here in the United States, that's the better option. But if they were to do the plug-in hybrid, it's gonna make some people happy. Early adopters will be like, "Oh, we're getting our electric trucks," and then nobody buys it.
Yeah, well, and you know what? When it comes to the Power Boost, which is just a F-150 standard hybrid with a 1.1 kilowatt battery, early on, I didn't see a lot of people throwing themselves at it, but I'm actually starting to see increased interest in it now. In
Mhm,
reality, it makes a really nice difference in the city. You're
mhm,
looking at, up to, if you're not towing, of course, because if you're towing, forget about it. If you're on the highway, there's barely any difference with any of the other engine options. But in the city, if you're real careful, you can get 35% better fuel economy. Now, if they do bring us the plug-in Ranger, the people that would benefit would not be, workers. It wouldn't be the construction company with a
yeah,
trailer. It'd be the person who's using the Ranger as their daily commuter. So for me
mhm,
personally, and a lot of the customers that I serve, they go to work electric most of the year, make it back, because when at the end of the day, the average commute to work is what, right around 25
4
miles.
yeah,
Yeah, right around 24, 25 miles per gallon is the average. So there would be some people that would benefit from it, but it would definitely help Ford with bringing up that fleet
Oh,
average,
yes,
mile per
100%.
gallon average, because if they're going to sell less Lightnings, they're going to need to make it up somewhere else. Otherwise, they're going to be fined by the government or end up, paying Rivian money or Tesla money for those carbon credits. Because yes, it's wild with Dodge being behind the fuel efficiency forced government move. They're way behind, but they're just paying their competitor to keep going to
Do you
survive.
Do you think with the slowdown of the EV, I mean, Tesla is gonna sell Tesla. Tesla there's a luxury name associated with that, but with the big 3, or what I like to call the big 2 now, since the Jeep and all that is much just a European company. Do you think that they kinda push? I know the dealers are pushing back with the federal government a little bit. I know here in the United States, the dealers are signing letters trying to get Biden to let's just reevaluate. Do you think the dealers went out on that and are like, "Hey, we wanna do this, but at the same point, we're companies that have to make money, and if people aren't buying these vehicles or there's not the mass rush to buy these vehicles, do you think that, we slow down this? Because what was it, 2030, 2035 when, we were supposed to be all EV or over 50%? I do. I think they've learned real quick that the rush of excitement and the big 3 got really excited about, "Oh, we can do it," and GM still can't seem to actually get an electric vehicle out for whatever reason. And I live next to, or pretty close to their Spring Hill, Tennessee plant, and they've got a new Ultium battery plant I was just at the other day, and massive plants. And I think by the time I've talked to workers that work there, they're like, "This tech's already outdated that we're installing." So I think these companies are gonna have to tell whoever the local governments, the federal governments, like, "Hey, we wanna do this, but we cannot do it at these let's slow down, let us still sell let's tone the cafe regs down just slightly, and
Yeah.
then we'll work with everybody."
Yeah, it's everything you're saying is spot on. And the real difficulty is with the current battery technology, and all the manufacturers are fighting over the same resources. They're,
Mhm.
all our phones, and I'm watching two handsome guys right here. So, I'm following the chat on the side. So, the WB Ridgeview, the regulars, thank you so much for being here. But big problems for dealers because it is hurting us. Ford is losing with all the competition for the same batteries. Lithium prices in the last 3 4 years, they did what? They tripled,
Mhm.
and
Well,
it's
you
making
know why
it
that is? China sucked up all of the mineral rights in South Africa and all that, and wisely. I don't. It's when it comes to all these countries kind of hoarding up these minerals. I get 100% why. And part of China hoarding these up was they were bringing a lot of resources to the areas in Africa that didn't have fresh water. There's a trade out to it, but
yeah.
they own basically all that. They tried to do it in South America as well. They're trying to control the economy of mineral resources, and I think that's a big chunk of it. And you look now, China is about to bring cars to the United States and North America. They're really pushing hard to get those vehicles to. They're willing to lose a lot of money. Their government's willing to subsidize that so they can be number one in the EVs here. And there's a reason for why now GM and all these companies, the mineral prices are going up.
Yeah, but at the end of it, it's making it that these cafe regulations are really hard on dealers
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
Ford, with the price of lithium easily tripling, they're losing money on these EVs. And on average, Ford said it was revealed that Ford loses on average $33,000 per EV built. Obviously, they're losing a lot more when they build a Pro. And right now, the Pro model, they could sell a ton of them. I've got an insane amount of demand for an F150 Lightning Pro,
Hmm.
but the end result of it is that no one Ford's only producing 1% of the whole Lightning production is 1%. So next to no one is going to get a
Yeah.
Pro model. And then, XLT standard range battery, they're losing money on it as well, not losing it quite as much as the Pro. So at the end
Hmm.
of the day, it hurts dealers because the models that we're getting the most of are Lariat, and we're getting more Platinum models than we are Pro, obviously. And the result is that what people want, they're not getting.
Right.
So we get these lariats sitting around at the lots, 100,000 Canadian, 102, 103,000 Canadian dollars,
Wow.
and we're paying 8% interest on these machines, and it's
Yeah.
compound interest, right? So it gets calculated every month. So every month, it's at the end of the year, we end up paying, of course, more than 8% because they're tallying up that average. Every single month, these vehicles are sitting on dealer lots, and it is truly hurting our bottom line. And
Yeah, and then
for
you just have
Ford,
to dump them. At the end of the
we
day, the
yeah,
dealership has to dump it because nobody wants an old 23 or 22 just sitting there on the lots. They gotta have new vehicles, and
we really
yeah,
hope
I
we
think
won't have to dump them. We really hope that Ford will throw down some
yeah, some
rebates
cash
the
for
way
it,
they do
yeah.
on F-150 gas model right now has what 7,000 Canadian
Wow.
manufacturers rebate on the 2023s to help get them off the lots. And it is actually we're having very good. January was a very good sales month for F-150s.
Oh, nice.
At least at my dealership, it was an extremely good month because of that $7,000 rebate, and we'd move a lot of Lightnings if they threw down a $7,000 or $8,000
Yeah.
rebate
Do you
on
think
them.
at the end of the day, John, that do you think that, Ford was real quick to say, "We have a Gen 2 truck coming."
Yeah,
They wanted to beat Tesla at the end of the day, which I don't blame them at all. The truck, I commend Ford. They made a electric truck that looks still like a Ford truck. They didn't go Cybertruck, which, the love-hate on that is either or. But they took a basic, "Hey, we can shove electric motors under this. We can put a average size battery pack under that and sell a truck pretty quickly." Do you think that they're happy now going, well, I know they've cut to one shift at the manufacturing facility there for the Lightning. I think
yeah.
personally, I think they're okay with everything right now of going, okay, we'll still trickle them out, but we've got this Gen 2 truck we're probably going to release in a year and a half or so. Let's just, like you said, probably for dealers, we're going to have to throw some money down. Let's get rid of these. We'll just build a handful of them a month, and then we'll jump up and get ready for Gen 2.
Yeah, sometimes you got to cut your losses, but the problem with Ford, I understand Ford announcing how they've got this Gen 2 technology coming and it's going to be incredible and so different, vastly different. The problem is it's not helping us
Right.
sell and for Ford, they sold those vehicles to the dealers. The
Mhm.
deal's done for them. It's sold. Sometimes people think dealers play, these games to help Ford's numbers. No, no, no. When Ford is sold, Ford sells the vehicles to the dealerships. The dealerships start paying 8% interest on those vehicles. So when Ford announces how incredible Gen 2 Lightning is going to be, and we're sitting with all these, $103,000 Lariats sitting around that we're paying 8% on, it's kind of like, oh, please don't talk about that right now. Give us
Right.
don't talk about that. Talk about this new manufacturer rebate you're going to put on the EVs. But Ford, from the outset, said it's going to be one price, fixed pricing for the EVs. That they're not going to do rebates. However, listening carefully, I can see that Ford has the door kind of open. They want to keep the door open for being able to play around with the MSRP price. As we saw, we started the year with the XLT being 2023 XLT. Well, my Lariat I bought at 112,000, or I'm leasing because I don't want my technology to go out and kill my resale value. And at the end of the lease,
Right.
give the keys back. So I'm leasing my F-150 Lightning. But I paid it was 112 window sticker, and now the same Lightning is $102,000 window sticker. And I read an article from Ford Authority saying that in the United States, as of January 8th, there's price increases and price reductions. It was talking about the Platinum going down by, I believe it was $7,000, but that the Pro would go up by 5,000, and the XLT 2024 Lightning was going up by $10,000. And I'm wondering if that's so that they can still people will look at
And
Lariat
what a
versus
way
an
to
XLT and
what a way to scare customers too, because you're dealing now your price is based on mineral prices, basically. So
yeah,
you're playing the commodities stock market game with vehicles, and customers do not understand that. They
yeah,
expect, okay, each year a vehicle might go up, but I know for that year, here's the price. And with Lightning, it's been in a year and a half, it's been up, down, it's been all over the place. And I feel for dealers having to deal with this because once you like you said, once you buy the vehicle from Ford, you bought the vehicle from Ford and you're stuck with that price. Just because Ford
right.
drops the price again, that's not the price that dealership paid, 2 months earlier. So for dealers to get stuck with some of that, it's a shame, and I think it's smart of you to lease that vehicle, and I think it was for any EV tech right now, only way I would ever do it is to lease it. Maybe other
Absolutely.
than Tesla. Tesla has pretty good resale value, but past that, I look at Nissan had a problem. Nissan was big. They brought out the Leaf, and between them and Tesla, they were the first two. Nissan really was the first to manufacture high rate EVs, and the Leaf was, I forget what it was, like 36,000 plus you get the $7,000 rebate here in the United States. So it brought it down 28,000 or so. But a year later, that thing was worth $10,000. Like, and
And Tesla,
it's all due
yeah,
to tech and battery because
yeah.
each one of those things get better each year. It just kills auto manufacturing.
But Tesla they introduced to market the whole idea of just randomly dropping the price on a vehicle
Mhm.
by $10,000. And the result is I used to have a huge respect for those resale values. And that was one of the things that I really liked about Tesla. But ask people that bought, a Tesla in the last year, right before their roughly $10,000 price drop,
Yeah.
to after those customers got destroyed, and Teslas are not holding the value in 2020, mid 2023 on, they weren't holding their value. They were back in, well, the last decade. So Teslas now are depreciating at a much higher rate than they used to. And I think this price fluctuation that, I think you said, well, most customers don't understand this price fluctuation being about commodity prices. And at the end of the day, when you're just looking at your own vehicle that you bought, who cares what the mineral price costs? What we
Mhm.
want is to be able to buy a vehicle and know that we can resell it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years later at a reasonable price. Whereas
Yeah.
and that's why I'd say don't buy any electric vehicle, lease it, because at least, in my case, I bought at 112,000 and I could lease at 112,000. And right now that vehicle on trade, I could get about 65.
Wow.
So I'm no mathematician here, but I can count that that's roughly, 50 or roughly $55,000 of depreciation in one year, 12
Did
months.
you did you expect to get hit that hard when you leased that
No.
vehicle, or would that have changed if you would have known that? Would that have changed your opinion of because I know you for your channel sake and stuff, you want to be some early adapters to things because we want to bring some of this stuff. I mean, that's part of. I want the Ranger Raptor badly because I'm an off road guy that likes to test things like that. But at the same point, I have to have the latest vehicles for my channel. I know for you, that's been part of you with Maverick and Bronco down in the past. So knowing what you know now, would you have made that deal?
I'm happy that I'm leasing it because at least at the end of the 4 years, if my buyback is, let's say, 45, and if it's worth 35,
Yeah.
that $10,000 loss, that's Ford's problem. They
Yeah.
they miscalculated, their problem, not mine. But as a guy that loves to change vehicles and has a car channel as an excuse to change vehicles and have write-offs, I'm so passionate about vehicles, and I do love bringing the latest and greatest to the car community. Yeah, I would not have touched it. I expected 1 year of ownership, of
Mhm.
leasing. I figured I'd flip it and
Mhm.
lose ten to max $15,000. I did the math. I'm like, okay, so it's going to cost me $1,200 per month or less. I'm not a guy that does a lot of mileage, especially now with the baby. I'm doing
Mhm.
less mileage than ever, so I'd only be spending about $300 in fuel.
Mhm.
But I've got this $1,636 lease payment, so it's rough. I'm gonna have to continue doing a lot of tax writing off by doing a lot of lightning videos. So folks, when I put out a lightning video, please help this guy feed and dress those poodles by, at least click on the video. Let it play in the background. If you don't like the lightning, just let it play in the background with the mute button on.
Right. Just be sure to hit the closed caption though, because YouTube does watch that a little bit.
Oh,
And
okay, thank
I
you.
have to say, congratulations, John, on the baby. We haven't got to talk much, but congratulations on that, man. I know
Thank you.
you guys are going to be amazing parents. So it changes your life in ways that you cannot expect. So.
We are unbelievably happy for a couple that was looking at buying a condo in Florida. And then we thought our chances of having a child, we thought our chances were at zero. and I was shopping the condos in Florida, and this tops it. I absolutely love being a father, and it is
Good.
extreme. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me.
And you better make that little baby a car baby.
I know as a kid, one of the few ways that my parents could get me to sleep was to go for a car ride. It was a guaranteed way to get me to sleep. Now, as a teenager starting to drive, I still had a bit of that. I'm driving, I'm in a vehicle, and I'm going to fall asleep. So it wasn't later on. It wasn't great, but I do hope that she's going to be
Well,
a
one
car
last thing, John.
now.
One last thing on that. So breaking news here with EVs. Used to be you put your kid in the car, the vibrations, the sounds of the car, plus the road noise would help put the baby to sleep. With EVs being so quiet, parents are out of luck, man. They're
Very,
too
very
quiet. They're too quiet.
solid, solid point. Now, if you're good for it, we're going to switch over to the
Yeah.
new Ford Explorer. You've got a fantastic video on it. So, folks, if you're watching this as a cut up episode, welcome to episode 2. New Ford Explorer, new prices, and what is the best model. So, let's cover that right here, right now. We've got Dave from All Terrain Nation with us, fantastic auto journalist, second person to ever be on the channel here, because, well, I only let the best come on to the show. So, Dave, thank you so much for being here again.
Thank you.
Now, we're going to be talking about the Ford Explorer. You've got an episode out.
Mhm.
Now, do catch Dave's if you're interested in the Ford Ranger. Go over to All Terrain Nation, check out Dave's channel. He's got great Explorer videos, but he has lots of Ranger videos because he's been covering it from, I'd say even before day one, because he was covering even the rumors. And Dave's really good at getting inside information, uh, kind of like me over here because I'm working at Ford. But many times I've seen Dave get information before me. He just covered the Ford Explorer, and we've got it's not, I wouldn't say it's all new. It's touched
Mild
up.
re mild refresh.
What do you think about this mild refresh? How are you finding the styling?
I'm happy the kind of the side profile of it didn't really change much because I think it was a really good looking vehicle, from the get-go.
Yeah.
The little bit larger grille, I don't know how I feel exactly about that yet, but I think overall they've done a home run with it. The taillights and stuff, all the little mild things they've done look great. The new, infotainment system, what are they calling it? I forget what they call it. It's not really gonna be sync anymore, what they're doing. They have a new name for it. But the
That's right.
ability they've really captured the soul of, the younger generation who are buying vehicles now, your millennials, your Gen Z, I guess it is, because they're adapting video games into these things now, and the way they partner with Google to do that, and you've got that, what is it, like a 13.2-inch screen in that vehicle, I believe. So they're really Ford's kind of smart about it. I think they've seen what Tesla was sort of doing with the Model Y of how you could a lot of connections to your daily life in that vehicle, and Ford's kind of capturing that. I think the model for me though, out of all of them, is the ST. I always tell people on my channel I want the most horsepower possible, just because I'm an old school, want to go fast person, and that thing at 400 horsepower, being a rear-wheel drive vehicle still, that there's a lot of Mustang vibes to me about that vehicle, John. It may not the V6 in that may not rumble like the Mustang, but when you smash that pedal, I think it's gonna bring a lot of smiles to people's faces. The interior of it is nice. Of course, being a three-row, can you imagine well, I'm a lot older than you, John, but when I was a kid, I cannot imagine, like, my dad wanted a Grand National, the Buick Grand National so bad, and he could not convince my mom that we could make it a family car because I had 2 other siblings, so 3 people in the back of that, plus up front, being a 5-seater, it just wasn't gonna be feasible, so my mom made my dad buy a 4-cylinder, a little more, a wise decision, but to have the ability to have a high horsepower family cruiser right now, Ford has hit a home run with this because I look at what Kia's doing and they're having some fun, but I don't see anybody really bringing a rear-wheel drive vehicle like this that either you can get it with the four-wheel drive, all-wheel drive system, or if you wanna take it to the track because I'm seeing people taking these things and tuning them and having a lot of fun. I'm seeing them beat Corvettes on the track and that's ridiculous to me, and the idea that I can get for what I think I priced mine out at right at 59,000 dollars to have such a family cruiser that I said it in my video, I can go to Walmart, go to the drag strip, take my winning trophy at the drag strip back to the grocery store to pick up my groceries, and then go home. That's a heck of a night to me, and I think Ford's done a great job with this vehicle.
I think Ford's smart in publicizing and putting the spotlight on the ST
Mhm,
because for all the reasons you mentioned, and it's also just hands down gorgeous. This thing
mhm,
doesn't look like your soccer mom's vehicle. It doesn't
mm-mm,
look like a van. This thing is beautiful. And you said it well. Explorers have sold very well. It's a success story for Ford. They had already nailed down the style. So you don't
mhm,
want to you don't want to go in the complete opposite direction. You just want to tweak the recipe. Just like, when your mom hands down the family recipe for chili, you don't you can tweak it, but you
mhm,
definitely don't try to change it. So, yeah, there's not I think when I see this vehicle, I'm not thinking like, what is that? We know right off it's a Ford Explorer. I do like that the grill is a little bigger. I don't think they did a whole BMW of this. They didn't put
yeah,
an atrocious grill that completely ruins the brand and then decide to
mhm,
basically slap it on everything like it's bacon. That grill is the opposite of bacon. It's broccoli, and they've decided to throw broccoli on almost every single model. So
yeah,
I think this is, I'd say the fact that you're not sure if you like it less or more than the current model is perfect. That's sort of like it just means it's been tweaked and you're wondering, you know what, I'm gonna have to taste them both. So people might end up having a used one and a new one in the yard. I think that this is a fantastic vehicle. Love 3-liter V6 twin turbo. But as a family vehicle, and not my personal vehicle, I have to disagree with you. Personally, I think the ST is amazing. If it's going to be your main vehicle, spend the extra money, get the ST. I was blown away. I did a video test driving and reviewing the Timberline, which
mhm,
has the 2.3-liter in it. And I thought my conclusion in that video was going to be great looking vehicle, incredible exterior, incredible interior, but they not enough wow from the engine. But surprisingly, I wasn't disappointed with the engine, and actually, in stepping on it, I was like, wow, this is actually pretty impressive. And as a standard engine, incredibly impressive. I grew up. My mom didn't have any say when it came back in the day when it came to the family vehicle. So my father had a Camaro SS. I believe it was a 74 or 72 Camaro SS as the family
oh,
vehicle.
wow,
And I'm
nice,
pretty sure a 2.3 Explorer would squash that vehicle.
100%,
Yeah, because what was it like? You had about a low 6 second off a
yeah,
69 Shelby GT 500, and that was in the low 6 seconds. Which now the six cylinder, well, when they had a cylinder Mustang a few years ago, it was on paper faster than a stock Shelby Cobra GT 500 from 1969, despite its incredible horsepower rating. So the 2.3 liter is a good engine because for me it would be a secondary vehicle. I definitely get the ST line. I want the looks of the ST, but I
mhm.
could live with having one slower engine in the family.
Well, can you tell me a little bit what makes, because I don't track Explorer a ton. What is the big difference between ST line and the ST?
Fantastic question. It's all under the hood. You won't be able to go win trophies at the track, but you'll look great at the Walmart because it's essentially pretty much all the looks of the ST without the engine.
Okay.
So instead of having that 400 horsepower and 415 pound-feet of torque, it's about roughly about 315 horsepower and
Mhm.
low three. I think it's 330 pound-feet of torque. So it's the Ford Ranger standard engine.
Yeah.
It's a good engine. Now, would I pull 1,000 pounds with it? It can. They all come standard with a hitch now. They all come
Mhm.
standard with the Ford Copilot 360 Assist, which is fantastic. So if you don't know what that is, you can always check the Ford order guide for information. You can look up Ford Explorer 2025 Ford order guide. It's out, or go into a dealership. They can print it off for you. So the ST line has that look. Now, how they're breaking it up, they're going to have an active model at 39,625, the ST line at 44,385. So the ST line, you're getting there. The active was up on screen. So let's go back to that. Here's your $39,000 option. So you've got a little bit of either chrome or brushed metal look in the grille. You've got active shutters, meaning your front grille opens and closes for either cooling off the engine or better fuel economy, because when it's closed, there's fuel economy benefits to that.
Mhm.
And then you've got the ST line. Now, the ST line, we can see right off, looks a little different than the ST. But previously, for your 2023s and for what will be 2024 ST lines, you can pay for an upgraded appearance package. So currently, you can get it to look just like the fully decked out, pretty much just like the fully decked out ST. So we'll have to see. And then, of course, and I'm going to check that out, you've got the Platinum. The ST is 55,205. That is a good $10,900 more than the ST line. And you've got the Platinum sitting at 51,525. I think the sweet spot, if it's, if you're not horsepower crazy, or if it's your second vehicle and you find your 2.7 liter Bronco to be very fast. So you've got your ST line. All these vehicles are going to come standard with the 2.3 liter EcoBoost engine, except for the ST and Platinum that have the 3-liter turbo.
Mhm.
So off your active, though, you still get the 5G LTE Wi-Fi hotspot. You got available active comfort package. They all have keyless entry. They all have push button. They will all have remote start. They're all going to have first row heated seats, and they're all going to have adaptive cruise control with stop and go and lane centering, because they all have that as standard. Ford Copilot 360 Assist 2.0, and then interior. You mentioned how the interior is very impressive. They're all going to have that, as you mentioned, the 13.2-inch touchscreen in the center, and also behind the steering wheel. They're all going to have that non-touchscreen but digital gauges. So very sharp looking. Now the ST line, if I actually want to build and price that, I just click on it. And if we check out the ST line, I'm very curious to see if we can actually get it to look just like. I wouldn't take it black, because I can't handle having, you mentioned it in your video today. I enjoyed watching. You said black is a lot of maintenance, and you make one little mistake washing it, you've got little lines all over
Oh,
it.
well, yeah.
In Canada, we will not have rear wheel drive, but it does remind us in the States we can. So there's an added charge to go four wheel drive. And once again, if you're going to be, putting a boat in the water, I find $2,995 to go intelligent all wheel drive is fantastic. Meaning on a nice, beautiful day when you're not heavy on the pedal, it's going to be rear wheel only, going through corners. If you're on slippery surfaces, those rear wheels is going to be predominantly rear wheel drive, which can help you rear wheel steer through a corner so much better than when you're predominantly front wheel drive and might end up with a little bit of straightforward slip. But we see the ST line here. When we put it four-wheel drive, right off, we've got that ST look. So that's actually a caveat. Don't be fooled. I'd say get all-wheel drive, because it's not only $2,995, but we see those mags change right there, and you're essentially running yourself an ST, at least in
Yeah,
appearance. That's an ST minus the engine.
sure. Yeah, looks great.
I almost have you convinced. Is that possible?
No, I when I do my like, the videos that I do, especially my first look at these vehicles, I tend to go to probably the most expensive version, probably because there's more not clickbait to it, but there's more excitement to that, but
Yeah,
it's like
that's what more people want to find out about.
oh, well, I used to do vintage guitar sales when I was a kid, and we always had $10,000 guitars up high. It would bring customers in, but guess what? When they left, they were with a $250 guitar when they walked out, because that's where their budget was. So my
Smart.
approach is usually we'll, and I'll do a video down the road of looking to the lower trim. But no, I can agree with you. I probably the seats in it are honestly I think they're cloth seats still, right? So the
They
new
will be, yeah.
yeah, the new Ford cloth seats that they're doing, we saw with, Maverick or with, yeah, I think Maverick and Bronco. I dig the cloth seats a lot. They're not that old, boring looking stuff from the '80s and '90s. They still bring a lot of excitement with it, so the interior of this thing's gonna rock. Um, I love that across the board, 5,000 pounds towing across the board. I think that is a good sweet spot. I think we're
Standard hitch.
yeah, I think a lot of even with, like, full-size trucks, 12, 13, 14,000 pounds now is ridiculous. I think 5,000 pounds for a daily, "I need to tow the boat," or "We're gonna tow a small camper," stuff. I think this is the perfect vehicle for that. Look at the interior of that thing. Looks great.
Incredible. Yeah, so this is the ST line. So the ST, the main difference on an ST is that the center inserts that help hold you in position when you're cornering quickly. That's why it's not leather. Leather, you slide, or vinyl, you slide easily.
Mhm.
Even if you've got those bolstered sides, these do look like very sporty seats because of those bolstered side means sides that stick out to hold you in place. But the center inserts are cloth on the ST line, whereas on the ST, it would be Miko suede. So there's the big
Oh,
difference.
nice.
And the ST, I love the photos you shared on the ST. They've got the sort of embroidered or colored ST in the
Mhm.
shoulder rest area. And you're talking about that screen. I'm impressed by this standard 13.2-inch screen. I think that's a pretty big deal.
Yes, 100%, man. I mean, obviously, everybody wants a big screen nowadays, but the fact that it still feels like it belongs in the vehicle, that's a good design right there, and, John, for me and I said it in my video today, the thing that they've really done is the way the tray is for to hold your phone and stuff, the way they've made that more accessible, that center under the volume button there, like, to be able to have small storage like that, that a lot of times they were putting HVAC controls right there, and then your phone was kind of an afterthought, just shove it under the dash, it would slide around. I like how Ford's really adapted and making that area usable, that the passenger across from you can get to it, the driver, anything you need to put there, maybe you put your wallet there or whatever however you like to drive. I like
Two
that a
phones
lot, and
won't
for some
bang together.
yeah, it really for some reason, I don't know what it is about this vehicle, but that when I was looking it over, that was a design feature that I thought, home run for Ford.
Yep, and they pushed back. In your episode, I think you made this point. There's a little divider in
Mhm,
this center console. So you could have
mhm.
two phones, and they're not if you corner quickly, because it's a sporty, very sporty looking design
Yeah.
and very powerful engines. Those phones aren't going to crash together. So that's great. You've got actually the dash has been pushed further towards the windshield to give owners more space. So it's a more
Mhm.
spacious interior. So whereas this isn't we can't call it a completely new, completely redesigned model because it's still running on that frame, a real frame, not unibody, but a frame that it's the same as it was for the current model. But I feel, other than the fact that they haven't changed the body of this, to me, this pretty much is pretty almost all completely all new vehicle. I find the changes are fantastic. They're relatively dramatic without going so far as to say, you know what, they changed it too much. This new chili sauce gives me heartburn.
Right, and to your point was if you've got something and this is a good volume seller for Ford, this is good bread and butter, they make a lot of money with this vehicle, so you don't wanna see your client base too base, and Ford, generally, their designs in general, they don't ever go too far. You always look at the F-150s, they're always generational changes, they're not just drastic changes to do something different. So they know the client base of this, and they know, hey, they may have a 5-year-old one, and they love that vehicle, but they just want a couple, let's update the tech a little bit. So I think for Ford, it's a home run, and the fact that it's not real gadgety. The only bummer that anything Ford's doing right now is that kind of ruins me is the lack of buttons for your HVAC controls and stuff like that. I've had a struggle with that with my '24 Mustang that we have. It's been hard to adapt to push the screen on that, but, that would be my only nitpick to this vehicle right now. I think Ford has a home run on their hands with it.
Yeah, I feel it a home run as well. And I love the fact that the interior, we think about I'm thinking right now, Hyundai Santa Cruz. And that
Mhm.
thing, the interior looks amazing in a showroom if you're the first person to check it out. But if you're the second person to check it out, it's got fingerprints everywhere. And as good as gloss black looks good in marketing and publicity photos, gloss black looks the best. In
Yep.
reality, in real life, it is total hot garbage. It is the most, because it doesn't end up being gloss black. It ends up being greasy finger stains. And like, I never eat in my vehicles, and still, I fingerprints everywhere. I test drove the Hyundai Santa Cruz, and just after a test drive of trying the different buttons at the end, I was like, this drives me crazy, and give me a
My
rag and some spray.
my number one complaint about the Chevy Colorado and new Canyon, GMC Canyon, is the center console is all gloss like that, and it chips up easy. It doesn't, they need to build these vehicles to withstand a little bit of wear and tear. And yes, like you said, it's a nightmare if you're just ultra sensitive about keeping your vehicle clean. Yeah, gloss back looks great for PR, and I'll be at the Chicago Auto Show this week, and I'll see a lot of glass black, and I guarantee you I'll go to film something in it, and there'll be fingerprints everywhere.
So, folks, if you want to catch an incredible building price, check out All Terrain Nation. Dave's not just a good guy, he's also an excellent journalist. And I think being a good guy actually helps make him a great journalist. So, you'll see a lot of interior shots of the ST Explorer. It is gorgeous. I'd put my money on, if I was buying this vehicle, I'd go ST line all wheel drive because, well, you get the look of the ST and you're getting the interior, which is either half leather or what appears to be leather with
Mhm.
cloth inserts to help keep you in your seat. I think the 2.3 liter is incredible. Well, incredible. It's incredible as a standard engine. I would never pay extra to have a 2.3 liter unless it shows up in the Ford Maverick. So catch Dave's video. He'll cover that ST in weeks to come. We might talk more about the Explorer. So please do like and subscribe. Hit the bell notification so you don't miss out on any important auto news and information. Now, if you don't mind, do you still have time to stick to talk about the Ford Maverick?
Of course, man. You're the
Fantastic.
expert. I will say you're the expert on Maverick, though.
Well, that is very, very nice of you to say, but I really want your your professional journalistic. I don't know if I can say that as a word, but your viewpoint as a journalist. Because let's talk a little about what might, and Ford, and how manufacturers slowly move in certain directions. So
Mhm.
that's why I'm excited to have you on the show to talk about potential Ford Maverick news and some, obvious some news how to actually get these. Going back to the Ford Ranger, just a reminder for the Ford Maverick, Ford Ranger, any vehicle you're shopping for, ask the dealership what their allocations are. For example, right now, my dealership, we haven't been allocated a single Ford Ranger Raptor. We're going to get one, probably only one for the entire year, but we've got 3 or 4 orders in for our Ford Ranger Raptor. So if I see that I'm not getting scheduled, and you can have this conversation with your salesperson. This is why I don't necessarily believe in just buying vehicles online, because you couldn't have a conversation with Amazon, but have a conversation, whether it's for the Ford Maverick or Ford Ranger. Ask them, what are my chances of actually getting an allocation for a Ford Ranger Raptor? Now, for the Ford Maverick hybrid. For the Ford Ranger Raptor, I might end up switching to a 2.7 liter. If they come out with a Tremor, I think a Tremor 2.7 liter V6 would make me obviously less cool than Dave, but I'm already used to that. So, Dave can have the Raptor and you can watch his show for the Ranger Raptor. Now, when it comes to the Ford Maverick, we've got currently the hybrid version, which Motor Trend was kind of talking about it not having that much power, but if you historically, it's actually quite quick, and the 2-liter turbo, which has the 250 horsepower and 270 pound-feet of torque. There's some good talk about different models coming up, but before we get into that, Dave, if you're to buy a Maverick, which model would interest you?
Um, I've done a couple building prices on these things, and I have to say I'm a middle ground guy with this vehicle. I don't think there's enough for the top of the line. I don't think the interior is very sporty. no matter what it seems like. So there's nothing about the interior of one that would sell me over the other. The idea that Sync, what is it, 4.1 is coming, I think, to the Maverick. That's a plus because why Ford put the older Sync in the vehicle, I have no idea. I think maybe they were a little iffy of whether this truck was going to be a home run or not. So they kind of went a couple items cheaper than, and you want a price point. That what was they started at $19,000.
Yeah.
But
Wild.
I think for me, and you've got a picture kind of behind you there, I think what's coming for the truck, and I did a video on this. I had some spy photos a few months ago about this. I think an ST is coming to the Maverick. And I think that, I know they've already bolted some 2.3s into this. I know some Maverick owners have like, hey, it bolts pretty much right into this vehicle. And I can see a point where they take and put a 2.3 in this little thing and just they lower it, kinda gives it that my generation, that '80s vibe of lowering it a little bit, having some fun with lowered trucks again, which is exciting to me because let the Ranger be the more utilitarian. Let's take the Maverick because it's such a home run. Let's make a generic one, but let's have some fun with it. And
Yeah.
and not you don't want the price point to get too crazy, but I think it's low hanging fruit for Ford to be able to dump something bigger in the engine bay and to have a lot of fun with it. And I've seen it. I did a year and a half ago. Ford's been testing this thing. There, I did a video on this where they were all badged up, some strange hole placement in the front grille, looking to get a lot of air. And John, could you imagine an all-wheel drive version of in a 2.3 of this little thing? Like, could you? Oh, it would give you kind of that, people love the Fiesta ST. They loved that vehicle. It wasn't a big volume seller for Ford, and they
Tons
couldn't
of
keep the
fun.
hot hatch back around. But yes, I raced one this weekend in my GT. It was a lot of fun, and the guy had fun with me, and we were revving back and forth. Of course, there's nothing like a small engine versus my big V8, but it was a lot of fun, and I this would bring those vibes. It would give Ford some credibility. Could they do some sort of weird rally truck out of this thing? Because Ford loves in Europe, they love
Yeah.
rally racing. There's a lot of potential there for this little truck, and that's where I think that what we're coming up for probably next year a refresh, right?
Yeah, and well, uh, Ford Focus RS is a beast when it comes to rallying, drifting. It's a beast. So yeah, if this thing is offered with a 2.3 liter, it would be an absolute beast because the vehicle is roughly 3,700 pounds. And you've got a Ford Ranger coming in at almost 1,000 pounds heavier, and an Explorer, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Explorers are almost 5,000 pounds.
Yeah,
And an Explorer 2.3 liter is fast. An ST line 6-cylinder twin turbo 3 liter is extremely fast, even untuned. Like you said in a previous episode or earlier in this live, there's people tuning them and beating Corvettes at the drag strip. But
yeah.
this with a 2.0,
Have you seen the videos of these things already? The little 2 liters tuned, and the times they're getting on drag races is hilariously fun,
yeah.
man.
So it's a light vehicle. It's the weight of, if I'm not mistaken, a Mustang weighs right around close to 3,600 pounds. It's right in the
Yeah,
ballpark of a 2024 Mustang. 2.3 liter already. The 2 liter, you bring up a great point. The 2 liter already is fast with 250 horsepower and 270 pound feet of torque. Tuned, it's extremely fast. The 2.3 liter, if we get an ST, as spy photos that you've shared and you've covered in episodes, if we get that, we're going to have out of the box a very, very fast Ford Maverick.
yeah,
And this thing is going to be wildly fast for people that will tune in. And it probably won't take much. It'll probably be an air intake, a tune, an exhaust, maybe
mhm.
some headers, and people should be able to get an extra, out of the 2.3 liter, it's easy to get an extra 70 pound feet of torque and 40, 50 horsepower as people have with the Focus RS.
Yeah,
And in the
and
Focus RS, it's 350
the on
horsepower.
the only thing I would ask Ford to do, though, is can you we please put a shifter in this thing and not the dial? And
Yes, that
and
would be
nothing
so
nothing
cool.
against the dial for normal Mavericks, but if you're gonna do something fun, let's give it some old, like, everybody wants to have a hand on the steering wheel and a hand on the shifter kinda thing, and if you got a sporty car, it needs to feel the vibes of the sporty car. But John, this thing's definitely due for a refresh. This is and I remember talking with about the Maverick with some journalist friends of mine where at first I didn't get it. I was like, "Why? They just brought the Ranger back. I don't understand where this vehicle is coming from. But then I started doing the math of like, hey, they got rid of all their cars. They only sell a Mustang's the only car they sell now. So
Yeah.
this fills in that void of you get in one, you ride in one, it rides like a car, rides like a nice car, man. And this thing, I I kinda want one to be honest, John, out of
Yeah.
all my fleets, and I'm not brand and right now I've been buying Fords like crazy because Fords have been doing the most fun, I think, for all the vehicles right now. And I mean, unless you wanna get like you were talking about ordering a Porsche or something. I think Ford has been kind of having fun with the market, and this is such a fun vehicle that I like the kinda quirky plastics in the interior, with the weird oranges they do with the light grays and stuff. And you just give me a little bit better sound system and just a little slightly more tech and still keep it relatively cheap, and, I'm all day long about the Maverick.
Yeah, the market really wants, when we look at Ford have being down in Super Duty sales, which the prices on those have increased dramatically, but
Mhm.
that sales for the Maverick have gone up 99, I believe 99.8%. It really shows that the car market right now is begging for affordable options.
Mhm.
And you made some really good points about affordability. It needs to stay affordable. The WB made a really good point about how good this looks with these would probably be
Mm.
20 or 21 inch. These look like they're 21-inch wheels. It looks incredible. So I really do hope that you know, they're working on an ST model, obviously, with the spy photos. I hope it comes to market. I'd be very interested in one. I recently test drove. I'll have a total of 3 videos, maybe 4, coming out on the Ford Maverick Tremor. The Ford Maverick Tremor with the 2-liter, 250 horsepower, 270 pound feet of torque engine was a blast to drive, and it was actually quite competent when it comes to driving on back roads that were snowy and icy. I really enjoyed how, you mentioned that this drives a lot like a car, and that's what I came out with. It was like a sporty-ish car was the feeling that it gave me, but with
Mhm.
softer suspension that you would get in a car. So yeah, I really hope we get sort of a lowered ST version. And even though it'd be called ST because that's the new vocabulary, it'd be essentially a Focus RS truck. And the Focus
Oh,
RS is an incredible vehicle. The dealership that I work at and have some shares in, well, one of the owners has an RS, and he
mhm.
could have basically any vehicle that he wants, but he has a Focus RS. I know another sales consultant, he has had his Focus RS for years now, and he's going to be buried in that vehicle. Like it's
There's so
a special vehicle.
Yeah, there's something about a hot hatch, man, they're just so much fun.
Now we might also be getting a plug-in, and it's all about a question of will we get a plug-in or will we get an all-wheel drive hybrid? Well, I can tell you that I can almost guarantee that we're going to get an all-wheel drive hybrid that's not a plug-in before we get a plug-in. I'd say plug-in would be further down the road because would they really put in a 2.3-liter plug-in into this when it's going into the Ranger? I highly doubt it. So I expect an all-wheel drive hybrid, very much so for 2025. So yeah, when you said next year, I didn't say yes right away because my brain isn't in 2024 yet. I'm still back in 2023, but yes, now it is 2025 that we're going to get a good refresh on this vehicle. I can say that it is quite unbelievably likely, very, very likely, we're going to get an all-wheel drive hybrid, and I think that's going to make a lot of people quite happy. And at the end of the day, as much as Motor Trend was kind of talking about how the hybrid, they kind of mentioned it as if it was not enough power or it was missing power. That's if you look at the data, the 0 to 60 times, 0 to 60 mile per hour times off the hybrid front wheel drive are better than most full size pickup trucks.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
And it's going to be faster when it's all wheel drive. The all wheel drive system will make it faster. And it is crazy. And it's also crazy that, some of the world's best journalists can forget to, when comparing, and forget to look at the data. Of course, if you drive a 2-liter turbo and you put the pedal to the floor and you go, wow, that's surprisingly quite fast. And then you drive the hybrid, because it's slower, your impression is that the hybrid is slow. Just like if you drive a new Corvette or a new Ferrari and then go drive another vehicle that is actually quite very fast or the fastest for its category, you're going to think, well, this vehicle isn't very fast. That's just how
Well,
speed works.
I found in the industry I'm in that the older guard in this industry sometimes forget that entry level vehicles are still fun. Yes, they may not be the fastest, most capable, but they still there's a price point to that fun. Yes, but that some of the motor trends and some of this, which is why those outlets are dying, by the way, is they need to realize that not everybody has Porsche or Ferrari tastes, and sometimes the lower base, they buy the most vehicles, and maybe you
Yeah.
need to, tone it down a little bit and realize that, hey, there's, whether it be the Bronco or the Maverick or whatever it is, don't thumb your nose up at it, have fun in it, and love it for what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. It's well said. And you know, I had planned on getting a Porsche 911, but when it comes down to it, with price increases and with interest on a Porsche 911 being at 10.49%, when I got called the other day saying, "Hey, would you like to put order in, even though
Mhm.
you have an order for a 911, would you like to put an order in for Boxster GTS, a 718 GTS?" And even though it's considerably less expensive than my original Porsche build was about, I was debating between 135 and 155, 155,000 Canadian. But now
Mhm.
the 718 GTS is about $150,000. And they added a luxury tax in Canada. So in the end, I just said, you know what? Scrap that project. I'd rather have a Ford Ranger Raptor. And when it comes down to it, I'd rather have, if Ford comes out with a Ranger Tremor with a 2.7 liter, I'd still prefer to have that over the Porsche. Heck, you can buy, how many Mustang GTs can you buy for the price of one 911, and you have to get a GTS just to match, pretty much match the speed of that Mustang.
Man, my 24 GT Performance is the most fun for, I think it was 57,015 is what it MSRP'd at. That's the most fun that I think you can have. Yeah, that's a lot of money to a lot of people, but if you compare it to some of the vehicles like you were talking about, it blows it away. It
Yeah.
really does, for price alone, and there's nothing like a V8 of the Ford Mustang. There's once you start that, it brings I bought this car for my wife, and I drive it more than she does, John, because it brings every time you push that little start, there's something about a big V8.
The sound is incredible, and maybe I'm biased, but I was driving the Lightning, the Ford F-150 Lightning, and I was following a Corvette. I anywhere from a 2021 to a 2023 Corvette. So the
Mhm.
new model, the C8, and the C8 pressed on the pedal and took off. And I was in the Lightning, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to get a ticket. I know my Lightning is stupidly fast, 0 to 60 miles per hour in 3.8 seconds. I'm like, I'm going to follow just a little bit behind so it doesn't look like I'm racing because I want to hear it. And my conclusion
Yeah.
was, wow, that the Dave's Mustang GT sounds a heck of a lot better than the new Corvette,
Well, and
surprisingly.
it sounds so good, and you can be 35 miles an hour with the valves completely open on the exhaust, and you're just like, I don't realize, like, I'm probably not going fast, but it's just so much fun. So, let's keep V8s alive. Sorry to
Let's
derail your, Maverick
Oh,
talk
no
there.
worries. No, but I agree. Let's keep V8s alive. And I do want to say that I absolutely love the C8 Corvette. I would just modify the exhaust or get it with one of the modified exhaust packages, because
Mhm.
the C8 Corvette, at the end of the day, I prefer it over the new Porsche. The price, it's a fantastic vehicle. It's got great handling. So the Corvette does interest me very much, but with the baby, Marie always needs to be, watching the baby. So what am I going to do? go jump in the Corvette and drive around by myself all day on a Sunday until I get home to start, of course, preparing for the show about 5 or 6 hours prior. So I'm not going to wake up at 8 a.m. on a Sunday morning to go drive by myself in the Corvette.
Yeah,
And that's where I love vehicles like, the Ford Bronco, which, well, now, if that's all right with you, we'll talk quickly about the Ford Bronco.
sure.
Absolutely love the Ford Bronco because you can get up on a Sunday morning and say, I'm heading to the lake. I'm going to go off roading, or I'm just going to blast the back roads, the mountain back roads filled with potholes, and just blast through. And these things are unbelievably tough. The 2024 Ford Bronco, with the fact that it's coming, all models come with at least the marine grade vinyl. Some people are sad that the cloth has been, deleted, but I do like the fact that you now get the marine grade vinyl without having to pay all the way up to a black diamond or a Badlands. But I think it's just a fantastic, versatile vehicle. I've loved my experience with mine. Unbelievable comfort as I drive it down to Florida, all around Florida, and then all the way back to Canada. Are you still as much in love with that Ford Bronco in your yard as you were, let's say, week 2 or week 3 of ownership?
Literally just heard mine start, so the wife is going somewhere in that Ford Bronco. No, yeah, I love the thing. It drives great. I've had Jeeps and stuff, and yes, if you wanna, there's always a comparison. Well, they just sort of copied Jeep, but you know what? They copied a little bit of Jeep and made it so much better. They you drive straight down the road. I always say with Jeeps, you have to participate in driving because it's all over the road. Where this just tracks straight like that independent front suspension does with it. My 2.7 that I have in our Badlands is great. I did
I think sound wise, you've connected to that Bronco, Dave. Just 1 sec. So I think what's going on right now is Dave and his Bronco headed out. There you go.
there you go. Sorry, John. One of my earbuds went dead.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, the Bronco's been amazing. I don't know what you heard of my little rant there, but I've really enjoyed my time with it. For me, the Bronco was only supposed to be a year purchase. We was going to be a kind of a long term not press vehicle, but for us, a long term review vehicle. And with the families all fell in love with it. So, at no point is ours going away, sadly, because there's a few vehicles. I mean, I love the thing and I wanna keep it. I wanna keep all my vehicles, unfortunately, but the plan was for that vehicle to go away, but once Kelly got a hold of it, she loves it. It's not going anywhere. The 2.7 that we have, so much power in that little thing. I love the fact that it drives straight. It's not crazy to drive. Fuel economy, we put some bigger, heavier tires on ours, so it's not been great for that, but it's been in line what I've had with other off-road SUVs. The one thing that I will say about the Bronco is Ford has made somewhat of, in my opinion, I know you said you like the fact that they're giving marine grade vinyl and all that to some of the lower trims. I find that I don't know understand where the black diamond in some of these vehicles are now gonna stand. I said a year ago that I think Ford will do away with the black diamond because it doesn't fit in their lineup. I said that also that the base should go away, which it did go away, but I'm hearing rumors that the base is gonna come back and they're gonna do away with 2 of the trims. So we'll see if that I don't wanna say
Interesting.
just yet what they are. Can you hear me, John?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, sorry. I don't wanna say which trims I think that is yet because 'cause we'll leave that to speculation, but, for Ford, it's been a home run. We do think that 25, we're gonna see a mid-cycle refresh with that thing. Do they go from a 12-inch screen now to some sort of 14-inch because they seem to have a battle with Jeep now of who can put the bigger screen in? And John, I think too, the Bronco's been great for Jeep. I think it's starting you're starting to see sales, slip on Jeep because of the Bronco, but, for years, people wanted a V8 option in the Jeep Wranglers, and Jeep always said, "No, we'll just let aftermarket do that." There's companies that they'll put an LT1 engine in those things.
Huge
And
cost.
finally, when the Bronco came out, they were like, "Uh-oh." We better start. They've been always been slow to change the Wrangler, and with Bronco now, it's forced Jeep's hand to change, and now Jeep changing is forcing Ford to. They're going to have to take a look and go, okay, we've got to make some big upgrades. That steering rack, for one thing, needs to be looked at, which I think they're slowly doing. I think you'll see that Haas 2.0 eventually just be standard across the lineups. But pricing is the one thing that bums me out, and I do have a question for you on this. I've been thinking about this, and I was going to do a video on it, but I've just never figured out how to approach it. Is with when the Raptor came out, they started out at $72,000. That was kind of in line with the Wild Track was mid 60s for a fully loaded Wild Track. You go, okay, for $7,000-8,000 more, I can get the ultimate Bronco. But then with price gouging, as dealers were doing, Ford had enough of it and just went, okay, if you're getting 30,000 over what we're selling it for, guess what? We're now just going to sell it for 30,000 and take the dealerships out of the market. But like you were talking earlier, interest rates are through the roof. They don't seem to be coming down just yet. So, people with good credit, you're still probably a 7 or 8% interest rate for $100,000 vehicle now.
Yeah.
At some point, Ford's going to have to take a look, much like what Tesla did. We talked earlier, where they're going to have to cut prices. At some point, Raptor's going to have to come back down to earth with pricing. What do you think? Do you think they always keep it to that, or do you see them maybe trying to figure out a way to lower it without lowering it? Going, okay, we're going to offer back that mid package to kind of make it seem like it's cheaper, but where do you think they go with that?
I appreciate the question, and I'll answer it the best I can. My speculation is that they've got a bit of work to do. So, as a dealer, we've got now 7 Broncos for sale
Hmm.
live. And I mean, I've got easily 3 wild tracks. I've got actually, I have 4 wild tracks, 2 hard top wild tracks, 2 soft top wild tracks. I've got a 2.7 liter Badlands. I've got a 2.3 liter Big Bend, and a beautiful Outer Banks sold actually before it showed up. And I think that's sort of the forgotten model. But they're going to have to, if inventory continues to build on the Bronco, we're going to slowly see it follow the road almost of the current F-150, meaning Ford's either going to be paying to offer a better interest rate because banks are generally at about 8%. So
Yeah,
Ford is either going to do I'm thinking in French right now, but they're going to be paying
buying
literally,
buying buying down the interest rate.
thank you, buying down the interest rate or dropping cash manufacturer rebates. Now, the problem, manufacturer rebates are fantastic for people who pay cash, but for people who trade often, if you start seeing I think back to when Ford used to have employee pricing in 4 months of the year, there'd be $10,000 to $15,000 Canadian off of the F-150s. It hurt resale value. It hurt the trade-ins. You come in with your trade-in, and yes, you're getting 50, let's say on average $12,000 off the new F-150, but because of that, your current F-150 is worth $12,000 less on trade. So I'm hoping that Ford will just draw people in by buying a better interest rate as they have on many of the models. And when they do, I hope that when they do cash rebates, it's sort of like 1 week out of a month, every 2 or 3 months. So it's so quick that it doesn't affect the resale value, the trade-in value of these vehicles, but still occasional. So people who pay cash can be told, look, I'm a cash buyer. This, let's say, 3% interest rate. I know it's a paid for interest rate by the manufacturer, probably cost them, let's say, $10,000. Well, that doesn't work for me. And I hope dealers will be able to say, well, look, I'll take your number down. Usually 1 week out of, every 2 months, they'll have a special kind of like a flash flood sale. And we'll have these, 1 week sales where we get the cash rebates. I'll give you a call as soon as I hear about when it's coming up. And often we know that they're coming up roughly, sometimes 2, 3 weeks prior to them occurring. So that way everyone's happy and no one loses out on the trade-in value. At least that's how, if I was running Ford, that's how I do it. I've seen Ford successfully do it in the past. with the F-150, because right now F-150 values haven't dropped too much. But we're having a 2-week period this month in Canada where there's a $7,000 rebate on the Ford F-150. The interest rate's a
Wow.
little, and the interest rate isn't at 8%. It's not at the standard 8 or 9%, and it's certainly
Mhm.
not at a Porsche 911's 10.49% interest, which is just disgusting. But later on, it's just a temporary special sale.
Right.
And later on in the month, we'll have better interest. We'll have much less rebate and better interest. And by not having for very long periods of time a huge rebate, it helps have a much healthier trade-in value. So that's what I'm expecting to see from the Bronco. Yeah, the prices did go up, and I think that are we going to see them drastically go down? I don't think so because of inflation. The cost of building these has also drastically gone up. If anything, I think they'll just pack them with more equipment, more technology, more upgrades so that people can, feel like, hey, you know what? Yes, it's more expensive than a 2020 when they were announced in 2021 and they came out as 2021 Broncos. Yes, the price has gone up X dollars, but now I'm getting, for 24, for example, we're getting the 12-inch screen. Are we going to get upgraded suspensions, as you mentioned? Maybe they'll all get Haas 2.0. I think as time progresses, it'll be sort of like the story on the Explorer 2024 Explorer that we covered. It now comes
Mhm.
standard with a 13.2-inch touchscreen. It now comes standard with the digital screen behind the steering wheel. So I think what they offer in regards to technology and quality will go up, but we're not going to see. I wouldn't, as a Bronco, if I was a Bronco buyer, I wouldn't sit back saying, I'm going to wait it out. Maybe in 2 years, the
Yeah.
prices will drastically come down. I really don't think it's happening.
Right, and, those early adopters for the Raptor Bronco Raptor buyers, man, they must love the fact that the prices are mid-90s now for a Raptor because that means that their vehicle literally went up in price. It didn't go down.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
like they can I know a lot of people were flipping them, but they literally could make some money and drive it for 20,000 miles and still make money on the thing. But John, you know what Ford needs to do with the Bronco though at the end of the day? They need to follow through with some promises that they made, which they've not done and they've just sort of hid from it. The top issue is still an issue. Both soft top
Right.
and hard tops are having issues. I had to have my factory plastic glass in the rear fixed because the little tabs broke off of it. I would have thought by now they would have fixed the hard top issues. Clearly, it's a bad design, and I don't mean it's a bad design on
It's a little
Ford's part.
noisy.
It's just a manufacturing the way they manufacture that. They cannot seem to seal the top to keep moisture out from it, and it's got a cardboard center. And when moisture gets in
Yeah.
there, it causes issues. But I think for one by 25, they better give us some painted hard tops. They need to follow through. There was the one thing with the Raptor that disappointed me when they brought the Raptor out was there's no painted hard tops, and especially for $93,000, that should be standard on that vehicle to me personally. But overall, I think there's still a lot of value in the lineup. The Big Bend is that you get a lot of vehicle with the Big Bend.
Yeah.
Um, the biggest thing I would say is do they keep the two-door around ultimately? Sales are okay for a two-door, but they're not like what the four it's like
Production cost, right?
85% four doors take on these things. Yeah, and at some point, Ford, they're gonna cut their losses, much like we talked about earlier in your video where they don't do manual transmissions in the truck. At some point, they may not do the two-door because it's not cost, it doesn't make sense to do that, but do you miss? Because I don't think you have one right now, right? Do you miss your Bronco?
Uh, I did miss my Bronco a lot. The wife and I each had a Bronco. I had the Sasquatch Outer Banks. She had I had the Badlands, and she had the Sasquatch Outer Banks. We'd sometimes switch. And I missed it so much that I bought a green Wild Track back in July. So yeah, I
Oh,
have a
wow.
2023 Ford Bronco. I made the choice to not wait for 2024, but it's because
I gotta catch up on your channel, John. Man.
I haven't done very many videos with it actually. But yeah, no, I bought a Wild Track Eruption Green.
Mhm.
Beautiful 2023 Wild Track Bronco. It's a
Nice.
four-door soft top. And, you could say I'm biased to the soft tops because I've now had three of them. But I actually had a couple the other day go out saying, we only want a hard top because of less noise and they're better in the winter. I said, no problem. They tried a hard top wild track, came back and said, well, we want to try a Badlands now. I said, I'm really sorry, we have one, but it has a soft top, but just try it because you want to try the Badlands 2.7 liter. So wild track 2.7 liter, Badlands 2.7 liter. They went out, they came back in. I didn't have to say anything. They said, we're sold, we want a soft top. And I said, tell me more about it. They said the hard top was noisier.
Mhm.
And they're like, it was a cold day, and they said there's no issue with the soft top. They said, is it just in our head? And I said, no, soft top or hard top, temperature wise inside. I said the soft tops I've actually, well, the hard tops have gotten a little better from the first ones that came out. Obviously, they don't have visual
Mhm.
defects anymore, at least not that I'm seeing. But the soft tops are thicker. I'm finding it heavier if I go back to my 2021 Bronco Badlands, which seemed to look like it was like one layer thick and it was easily done with one arm. Now with
Mhm.
the new model, I'm doing it with two arms because it's heavier. It's thicker. They're better. The sound bending's better on them. And while winter, I told the couple, I said, no, winter, once you turn that heating system on, there's going to be almost no difference between the hard top and the
And
soft top.
they have a great heating system in these things. They did pay
Yeah,
attention to Jeep on that. They realized that we need a faster fan, a higher speed fan, because I'm sure you've had your doors off and stuff, and being in Canada, what you have like 1 week of real summer, what us in the US would call real summer. I'm
yeah,
kidding, of course, but if you've ever been down without your doors, and me and Kelly went down the highway one day, we're doing 75 miles an hour with no doors on, and it was kind of fall was coming, and that cool, damp air started kicking in. I was like, "Thank God I have heated seats, and this
yeah.
has a heck of a heater." But we have a hardtop. I'd ordered a hardtop from Advanced Fiberglass, and like many people, still wondering where that top is. I don't know if you've paid attention to that over on Bronco 6G, but I'm excited to see what a different manufacturer's hardtop was, because I know in the two doors especially, the hardtop is loud. It's very loud,
Yeah.
and I I don't once again I don't beat up Ford about that because I don't think it's just a bad design. I just think it's a bad they were sold a bad manufacturing way to do that. Of course, you want these tops to be light, makes sense to put cardboard in the middle. It's still pretty strong, but, Jeep's done this. They should have just did what Jeep did. I've never heard people complain about a Jeep hardtop, so, hey, Ford, let's Bostos still makes some of the stuff for Jeep on that anyway. So with the C8
Yeah.
Corvette, they make that hardtop. They seem to do
Yeah.
alright with that, but I just think
Very good
ultimately
job on
they
the Corvette.
yeah, overall, I think just taking a chance on something maybe you should have taken a chance on, but our 21's been a home run. I don't have as many miles on ours because we get press vehicles and we go through vehicles pretty good, but I think we're at 27,000 miles on ours right now. And we're on our last year of warranty, so ours is going to the dealership this week. You were talking earlier, how you wait to save up all your recalls and stuff into an oil change, which is what we're doing. And so while I'm in Chicago, my baby's going to be in the local Ford dealership getting repaired.
Now, I'm usually a bit of, well, not a bit. I'm one of the worst. I'm the worst person I know, the worst person I've ever met for changing vehicles. I will have anywhere from three to, like, right now, I have a 1999 Porsche 911 convertible red. I have a black 2000 Porsche 911 Carrera. I have a Toyota MR2 1991. I
Oh,
have the
I love that
23
car.
Ford
I love that
Bronco.
car.
Yeah, it's cool. It'll be cooler once it's running. Thanks, Toyota. You're always broken. And I also have the Ford Lightning, right? And
Mhm.
normally I would change all six of these vehicles roughly every 6 to 10 months. But I love the Bronco so much, and I love it so much. I had it undercoated while I was on paternity leave. I had it undercoated, and I'm getting it the whole front end wrapped. I've thrown on the sort of the to get the blow off sound. I've got the BOV adapter underneath the hood. I put
Mhm.
plates, and I haven't done that video yet. I filmed it and everything, but I put little plates, the grab handles, the little Bronco lettering in the dash. I really love it, and it's probably going to be one of the few vehicles in my life that I keep for more than 1 year by choice. Now, the Lightning
Yeah.
I will be keeping not by choice, not because it's a bad vehicle, but it's a very good vehicle. But the Bronco is absolutely fantastic. And Ford has cut down. They cut one line away from the Ford Lightning factory, and
Oh,
those
they've cut
people
2
are
lines now.
two lines. Okay, so yeah, that's where I
Yeah.
guess we get the, what is it, roughly 1,400 jobs where people are getting offered to either retire or go
Buy
work at the
elsewhere.
Ford Bronco, Ford Ranger
Yep.
factory. So great news for Ford Ranger and Ford Bronco. Not so great news for the Lightning. But I just wanted to point out, if you take this vehicle was sold before it shows up, and Outer Banks models are gorgeous. I love the painted
Mhm.
fenders, and the owner of this asked to have slightly more aggressive tires put on, and just with slightly more aggressive tires, it looks great. And it kind of makes me want, if I did my Lightning, I'd be tempted to get an Outer Banks, like a 2.7 liter regular Outer Banks, and throw on 35s, put a little bit of a lift, throw on 35s, because I'm really digging those painted flares. You know what I should do? It just hit me now. I'm a little thick and I'm a little slow, but I just realized I should, just take my Wild Track and have those fenders painted. And when I go
Yep.
off-roading, take them off carefully so that they don't flex and crack the paint.
Yep. See you down at the Outer Banks. You'll have a blast with that.
Yeah. So we've got a bit of news. Dave, what do you think about, I believe it's wild horses? Wild horses. I can go grab the video on YouTube, but uh, he, he damaged his frame.
I
Did you hear about that?
I seen something pop up about that, and I guess it was making it was in some of the bigger media outlets, of deals. Um, well, there's been a couple little frame I know they got one of the early builds, and there's been a couple little if your viewers don't know, usually the first 6 months, they always tweak something. They come back from a shutdown, and the engineering's tweaked the way they do some things, and I know with the linkage, the rear linkage, there's been a couple spot welds that they've had to kinda go in. I'm not sure on his what's going on, but I know old Mitch there is a kind of a crazy driver. So, and
Yeah.
I don't mean that as a bad driver, he just likes to push it to the limits, and, what did he do now? Because I haven't paid attention.
So earlier on, he already had to change out parts of the frame. So this is the section that he had already changed once, and he welded it actually really, really well. But then other parts got strained because of it. So there's some cracks in the frame. So he's having to take out parts of his frame to put in new frame parts. And well, the thing is, though, is yeah, Mitch is why I believe his channel is called Wild Horses, if I'm not mistaken, and
Mhm.
he
They
he's a
actually
bit.
sell parts for they sell parts now for the Gen 6, but they started out just selling, bodies and all kinds of parts for the Gen 1s through.
And he is a bit of a wild horse. I think he's used and abused his Bronco more than probably 99.99% of all owners ever will. So I just wanted to mention this as a there's going to be some Jeep people getting on this and on this story and being like, oh, look at those Bronco frames, they're bad. They're not bad. It's just this Bronco was used far more often and beyond its limitations. And like
Yeah.
anything, anything can break. It's all
Mhm.
about how you use and maintain things. And I'm sure he does good maintenance and whatnot. So if people want to catch that video, it's Wild Horses. Mitch seems like a pretty good guy, so I do like to watch his videos. But he himself said that he has abused it incredibly, but that he also put on a stage 3 suspension, and
Yep.
those 37-inch tires and the added extra lift did probably played a big part. And of course, the extreme abuse he put his Bronco underneath played,
Oh,
are
well,
the
yeah,
reasons why he
100%.
has brain damage.
I know early on he, buried the thing in mud and had all kinds of
Yeah,
issues from doing that, and that was within they didn't own that vehicle maybe a month, and he went out. I mean, part of it is for what they do. I think they're testing vehicles for parts. They're trying out manufacturers, aftermarket parts, testing them. But, it's a shame that sometimes these good vehicles get the flashlight that's pointed on them sometimes are from there's a misunderstanding of what may happen. I don't know in this case if he was just because Mitch is he's a fairly young kid yet, so I'll probably see them. I know they come to Bronco Super Celebration East in East Tennessee. Him and his family, they truck from California, and they
Wow.
truck out here, and they sell a lot of gear, a lot of shirts, stuff like that. So it's they do a good business out here. So I've yet to actually interview Mitch. I'm friends with him on social medias, but I need to sit him down and get the real story of what did you do. But they have a good YouTube channel. I mean, they have a it's
Yeah,
a lot of fun. Mitch is a good personality. He was on Bronco Nation for a while. So if any of your viewers follow Bronco Nation, he was taking out that red Bronco they had, and he was taking it through some pretty rugged terrain. So he's very capable. So maybe he was
good
just
driver.
having a silly goose moment.
I think that's well said, and of course, it's a good reminder to everyone. Think about how you're using your vehicle. Ford, and like all manufacturers, you look at a Porsche 911, they'll show it racing at the racetrack. It doesn't mean you can drive it for 200,000 miles on a racetrack. If you take your Porsche 911 to the racetrack or your brand new Corvette, you're going to have a certain amount of miles that the engine and transmission will be able to handle under full
Mhm.
race 10 out of 10. I was going to say an expression I can't say on YouTube, but we'll say pedal to the metal, not not soccer balls to the wall. But if you drive it at full capacity, these none of these machines, none of the vehicles, the cars, trucks, and SUVs that we love can handle even 100,000 miles, even 20,000 miles of pure, hard, full out track driving. Well, the same thing is
Mhm.
true for off roading. Yes, Ford makes videos showing us these vehicles off roading, but that is gonna, if you're doing it, if you're only buying the vehicle to do hardcore off roading, you're not gonna get nearly, you're gonna get a tenth of the miles out of it than if
Yep.
you're, mixing up your driving style.
Well, you remember the Gen 1 Raptor, F-150 Raptors, man. People thought, "Oh, they're trophy trucks, so we'll just go out and treat them like a trophy truck," and they were breaking them in half because yeah, they're built to be capable, but that doesn't mean, trophy trucks are that's a whole whole 'nother monster of design, and they put an amazing suspension under a lot of these vehicles, like the Bronco Raptor, which I got to test in Vegas. Like, I did some jumps with that thing, and I asked the guys at
Excellent
the,
videos.
Raptor Off Rodeo, I said, "How do you guys plan on, like, keeping these things together? Because at some point, like you said, you enough abuse," and he goes, "Ford will send us more." And I was like,
Love
"Well,
it.
that says enough for me, okay. Ford, I'll break them. You keep sending them to me. How about that?"
Yeah. And that brings up the point of your warranty covers, you know, what we could call reasonable usage. You can't buy a Porsche 911 or a Corvette, do 30,000 miles purely on a racetrack going all out, and then have the engine blow and say, okay, GM, I want a new engine. They're like, well, no, we've seen all your videos. All you do is drive it on the track. We're not doing warranty on that. Just like,
Yeah,
in Mitchell's case from Wild Horses, he can't go to Ford and say, "Hey, can you warranty this?" Ford's gonna be like, "Well, no. Almost
yeah,
all your mileage is from extreme off-roading, sometimes going too a little too fast for the terrain, and
yeah,
you've modified the vehicle." So those are two issues. Just keep in mind, folks, if you want your warranty to pull through, be careful how you modify the vehicle and be careful who sees you doing what. If you've got all sorts of videos taking your Mustang GT, your Camaro, your Corvette, or your Porsche to the drag strip, and then your engine goes, you're gonna have some difficulties. You might not get warranted, and if on top of it you have all the screws and bolts left over from a nitrous system that you quickly ripped out of the vehicle before sending it in for warranty work. Well, when the computer tells Ford, well, I've had nitrous pumped into me, X 73 times, you're definitely not getting covered by your warranty. And this is based on a true story that I'm sharing with y'all.
Was it you, John?
No, it wasn't. I'm very reluctant to modify my vehicles while they're under warranty because part of buying new that I like is the warranty.
Mhm. And that was to kinda to put a pin in the Bronco, that was part of the appeal to me because, for years, I built off-road vehicles, and I got not tired, but the older you get, maybe your wallet gets a little bit bigger, and, I was like, "You know what? I can buy the Bronco exactly how I want it." Now, granted, I've modified it since then because once you go down that path, it's hard to not modify things, but initially was because I can get 35s under it. I can get the Sasquatch package, and I know I could go right from the, dealership and go do some the most extreme stuff I wanna do, and that vehicle is very capable.
Yeah, and it's something that I love about the Bronco as well, even though I don't have, these days I'm only getting out a few times a year to go off-roading, and glad that some of those times are on Ford's wallet, because every time you buy a Bronco, you get this Bronco off-rodeo event. And actually, the last time I went, we're in a group of just I was one of three vehicles, so we actually covered a lot. It's kind of like going to the water park if you're the only person at the water park. You get to do a lot of slides. Well, in the case of Bronco off-rodeo, if your group is small, I got a very intense 8 hours of off-roading.
That's awesome.
But when I take my own, I love the fact I've got a wild track. It's so capable. I can just dart off the road, go into, with the farmer's permission at the end of season after harvesting, and he's got all the mud everywhere and the field's been tilled. I can plow through that thing, drive home. I can plow through a field that's got, 2 feet of snow, play around, do donuts, and drive back home. So it's actually I think I can say it's the best vehicle. It's my favorite vehicle of all the vehicles I've ever owned. I really hope that people don't avoid buying a Bronco because of the frame damage story. I hope people don't think that's going to be, it's some sort of fault with the vehicle. And I really appreciate you being on the show. An experienced journalist with a lot of Bronco and Ford knowledge to share with us. It is very much appreciated, my friend.
Well, I appreciate you having me on here tonight, man. It's knowing I'm just number 2. I wasn't number 1. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm number 1.5, we'll say that. How about that? Can I be 1.5 of your guests? So, I
You can
feel I feel special.
You can definitely be 1.5. What happened? I had Tim on the show first. Where I had Ridgeview, my moderator, hook us up. So it was through our
Nice.
moderator that went through, because I would have been a little too shy to ask him. But you're a buddy that's been a buddy for quite some time now, so I didn't feel shy asking you. I was like, I really feel like hanging around with Dave. And this time I said, all the other times I've always drank. And I said, this time I'm only going to have water so I can have a coherent conversation. The poor guy has always dealt with me, at 30 minutes into the show, and I'm starting to feel a little like, oh, this show is a lot of fun. And I think I was letting it be too much fun.
Yeah, those that don't know, I brought John on early, I guess 21, maybe 22, somewhere in there, and part of what I do on my show is it's one time a week I kinda relax, have a drink, and John wanted to join us, and yeah, like John was saying, it's like, "Uh-oh, this goes on for longer than an hour, we better, chill out here."
Yeah, that's I was yeah, man, had just want a little bit too much. Just while we wrap up the show, just wanted to say that thank you very much to Charlie Hundley for sharing this on Ford Maverick truck. You've got your a Ford Maverick FX4 here with what looks probably like not stock tires, but still, those are cement bags in the back of a Maverick, and it's taking it. The Maverick is tough. I've been very impressed. I think anyone that's looking at a Maverick is looking at a great truck. Haven't shared really very much in regards to, I think I have zero Facebook photos of my baby, but I just wanted to show you my friend. There's Layla, and we've got just really enjoying being
Nice.
a dad. And if you're looking for a Ford Transit, they've been unbelievably rare for the last 2 years, but not all orders are getting picked up. So if you are unbelievably quick, most of these sell within 2 to 3 hours. But or less, if you're very, very quick, you will have some canceled transit. In the last month, we've had 4 canceled transits. So some people got really lucky and didn't have to wait the typical year. And the baby sticking its tongue out isn't about people waiting long periods of time, roughly 1 year to get a transit. It's just because that was the next slide, and that's where I fell on. But that's my daughter, my friend.
That's awesome, dude. Well, I mean, you're a good Canadian, so I think you're gonna be an amazing dad over there. Clearly, it's an awesome baby, and I hope Marie's doing well.
She
Um,
is.
clear Clearly, she's a mom now, so we don't get to see her on the channel as much, but, tell her we said hi over here in Middle Tennessee, and, next time you guys come down to be, snowbirds, let us know.
Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate you being on the show. Really, folks in the chat, really appreciate you chatting back and forth, adding information, asking each other questions, answering each other's questions. And Peugeot, thank you for being here tonight. Always a fountain of information. Ridgeview, I've got a fantastic moderator, Douglas Blair. Welcome to the channel, dropping some excellent information. His experiences with the soft top being awesome on the Bronco. The WB never misses an episode. So I'm lucky. I can't mention everyone, but I can say that I'm unbelievably lucky to have a fantastic auto community here supporting me, and I'd love it, guys and gals, if you could support. I don't have, unlike you, I don't have the looks to have gals in my lives. I go to Dave's channel and there's all sorts of gals in it. I'm like, Dave's bringing them in. He's bringing
Well,
them
I don't
in.
have the gun. I don't have the guns you do, so I don't know what. I don't know why it's they're coming in, but no, we have every Monday we do a live Broncos. Well, it's a Ford show now, but it's a lot of Bronco talk in there. And yeah, we have our co-host Allie Dubois, she works for a Ford dealership, and my wife Kelly, who's a Ford Bronco nut now. So we have fun. We have a drink or so, and just talk to everybody, and just see where they're at in their Ford world.
You can just drop the add drink part and just go to drink or so, because I think it's almost always more than one, and that's why I guess I'm a little too what do you call it when someone can't handle their liquor as well as
A
somebody else?
lightweight? Are you a lightweight,
Lightweight.
John?
I'm a lightweight compared to you. So we'll be back to the regular show probably next Sunday, folks, live. I'll get a few rants in for everything that's going on in the world. I will get political because I just like losing subscribers. You know, it seems every time I get political, I'm like, well, there, I just lost 30 or 40, 50, 100 subscribers. So if I was smart, I'd stay away from it. But who knows? Uh, Maybe one day I'll have to get into politics or start a political channel. Randy Schenk, thank you very much for making it in the show. I'm at the Ford dealership in Sherbrooke, so you can find that. You can Google that if ever you need any assistance. Thank you so much, everyone. Four high, four low in all the episodes. Really appreciate you being here. So drop a finisher, everybody. Thank Dave, and the way you can thank Dave is to go over to his channel. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe to his channel. He's got fantastic content, and he's one of only a handful of journalists that actually make videos based on the real deal instead of just, really pushing whatever the agenda is. If it's a new model, it's the best model ever, and then 1 year later, somehow it's become hot garbage. That's not the type of guy Dave is. He's ethical, and that's why I'm proud to call him my friend.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, John.
I've had a lot of fun tonight. Take care, everyone. Until next time, I wish you all more cars and more power. Don't forget as well to like and subscribe and share our channel so I can feed that baby. Don't worry if you don't subscribe, she'll still get fed, but it certainly will help. Take care, everybody.